Welcome back to Adelaide for the ANZ Super Series final. It is Sunday, it is time for our top 8. And after 8 hard-fought rounds of Swiss yesterday, we have a top 8 assembled, ready to do battle for huge cash prizes, not to mention, of course, a slot at the World Championship. All of these players already qualified for the Pro Tour, but only one of them will be representing the ANZ region at the biggest stage in Magic, at the World Championship. And today, we're going to find out who it is.
Hello and welcome everybody to day 2 of RC12 here in Adelaide, Australia. We have already seen so much great Magic this weekend, and now we are ready for an even greater, higher stakes day of Magic here on the Sunday. I'm Tom Anderson. With me is my lovely co-caster Molly Rao. Molly, what are you looking forward to the most today?
I am just looking forward to some incredible games of Magic. We've got a really great, diverse top 8, so I think we're going to see some really interesting matches of Magic that are just stereotypical of the current metagame across Standard. Yeah,
it's an interesting mix of some familiar favourites, which we already saw a fair bit yesterday, but in various flavours, and some of the relative newcomers to the Standard metagame who are looking to seize the crown.
Yeah, it's we have an incredibly packed top 8. Australian locals who are well seasoned at this regional championship level. So Dylan, Kakawa, Scott, Aitchison, Thomas Bott, Samuel Beard, Mia Fountain, Riley Beck, Hanbin Zhou, and Samuel Torman, all making the top 8 and taking at least 8 of those 10 Pro Tour spots that we had on offer here at ANZ Magic Super Series Adelaide, as well as now fighting out for the one Worlds position.
Yeah, it's as you say, these players did already qualify to the Pro Tour, so a massive achievement already to all of these players for making it this far. That's a hefty prize, but none of them are going to be satisfied with just that, right? They're playing for cash, and of course, that Worlds seat, which is obviously maybe the biggest prize any Magic player could win, other than winning Worlds.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, that seat at Worlds is a more than worthy prize for these 8 very powerful wizards who will be battling it out in our top 8 feature match area shortly. Now, looking at this breakdown for this top 8 metagame, it's incredible. We're looking at 2 Team of Prowess decks, almost identical 75s, like very similar decks, as well as 3 Selesnya Landfall decks, 1 Ouroboros deck, a Mardu Aggro Discard deck, which rose to fame recently at Spotlight London, and just will put on an incredible show. We didn't get to show much of it in the feature matches over the 8 rounds of Swiss yesterday, and I'm super excited to see this in action, as well as an incredible Teamer Omniscience deck piloted by Hanbin.
Yeah, that deck in particular was really impressive on coverage. It's a list which looks almost unassuming in how straightforward the combo is, but it turns out to have been a fantastic metagame call, at least for Hanbin. I think a few other players in the room bombed out pretty early with a similar list, but this Teamer Omniscience build crushed the room yesterday and earned Hanbin that Pro Tour spot, as well as the chance, obviously, today to play for much more.
It's almost like if you have a threat that needs an instant speed answer and your opponent must have it on that turn, otherwise you get an Omniscience on the field for free. It's almost like that's quite powerful, Tom.
Yeah, and when the most popular card in the room by some ways, Molly, is Burst Lightning, and your threat is an X3 creature that must be killed immediately, turns out a lot of decks do not have an answer ready for that.
Absolutely. So we will get to find out in one of our feature matches here for the quarterfinals how that goes for Hanbin, and I'm super excited to find out.
Yeah, I'm absolutely thrilled to see how all of these matches play out. Even some of the archetypes which we do see repeated, like the green-white decks, there are differences between the builds, and we're going to get really into the nitty-gritty of whose meta choices were correct as we work our way through the quarters and semi-finals. So may as well get right into it, right? Our first quarterfinal feature match, I think we're going to go straight to the top and show Dylan Kakawa, who's been dominating this event with the otter-heavy, very streamlined build of Blue-Red Prowess.
Yeah, it's straight to #1 seed. We are going to dive straight into their match. They should be ready to kick off for us right now.
And I was talking, Molly, I'm not sure if you've noticed, there are only a few little aberrations in Samuel's list, because a lot of these green-white decks are playing similar cards, but you'll notice at least 1 or 2 very powerful enchantments that Samuel's playing that I don't know if anyone else in the room has brought today. Felidar Retreat is a card I haven't had to say the name of in quite some time.
Yeah, I was not expecting that. We were laying out expected tokens for this feature match earlier. earlier in the day, and finding 2 cat beasts was not on my list of things to do this morning.
You don't just have your cat beasts ready with you for every standard event these days?
Strangely, I did not.
Okay.
All right, we've seen the textbook start for both of these archetypes here. So a turn 1 elusive otter from Dylan Kakawa, followed up by a turn 1 land or elves from Samuel Torman. We're about to find out if that bird will get bolted, and it does immediately with an impractical joke.
Yeah, the actual, almost a bolt, right? An actual 3 damage for 1 red removal spell. Now, it is a sorcery, so obviously not quite up to snuff compared to the mighty, mighty lightning bolt. But that impractical joke, you know, you're very happy to fire that off, even on a 1 toughness creature, because of it basically time walks or buys a turn off of Samuel's clock, and you don't want to let this landfall deck snowball. I'm sure anyone who's been following Standard lately understands the danger it poses.
I actually really love this impractical joke as an inclusion, as a one-of in a lot of the Teamer and Is It Prowess decks that we have seen over this weekend so far. I just think the diversity of removal threats is one of the powerhouses of this Prowess deck, for sure.
It is really interesting how this standard format has played out, where there's so many blue-red X builds, but it's not so much that they have particular cards that they all share that are very powerful. It's the diversity of answers across that color combination, which they all get to pick and choose from. And you can see that in how many 1 and 2 ofs there all are in their lists.
I would completely agree. We are watching a flow state resolve here from Dylan Kakawa, already being able to trigger the 2 instants or sorceries in their graveyard to be able to get max benefit out of that flow state. Following up with their 3rd land. And I think we might, so we can see a Wild Ride in hand there, we can see a Sleight of Hand.
A Secret Identity, and I'm not sure what the last one is.
A beautiful extended art card that it is hard to tell what it is.
It might be, oh, it's a land. That one's a land. Yeah, sorry, I was looking at the flow state and I just realized now. So yeah, I mean, the Secret Identity obviously is the big scary play here, but both players will be aware of that. Secret Identity, a common inclusion, at least in these otter-centric builds of Prowess, where you are playing either the otter and or Drake Hatcher, which I believe Dylan has in their sideboard. Because those are smaller-bodied creatures with Prowess, as opposed to just playing a large 5/5 crab, the boost you get from Secret Identity's hero mode is much more pronounced.
Yeah, absolutely. Dylan instead just choosing to shoot off a sleight of hand, curate their hand for next turn, and swing in with a 3/3 otter. Not a bad choice at all.
I feel like this is what the time they bought themselves with that impractical joke, right? You can afford to go a bit more of a steady pace here.
Yeah, absolutely. I was wondering whether Dylan was maybe digging for a boomerang basics. The ability to bounce that land-bended land from the cub really acting as a bit of a time walk when you can pull it off. Instead, we're seeing an Earthbender's Ascension from Samuel Torman here, activating another Earthbended land and therefore giving him a lot of mana to work with right here.
One of the things that's become more apparent over time as we see more and more of these green landfall decks is how strong Earthbender Ascension is in the deck, even with how many other strong cards they play, right? I feel as though, obviously, Mightform Harmonizer is the real lethal weapon. Badgermole Cub is so above rate. Ice Hill Explorer really makes the deck hum, but in a lot of matchups, it's whether or not you find this enchantment that can make the difference in being able to force through enough damage to win or letting your opponent stabilize.
Yeah, the trample keyword line item on Earthbender Ascension is really the piece that can help this green deck get over the line late in the game. Now, one of the powerful elements of Dylan Kakawa's Teamer Prowess deck, though, is that it does have multiple bounce effects in there to reset that Earthbender Ascension if it gets too powerful, if it gets too strong.
Yeah, I mean, it all kind of seems to feed into the same line of philosophy that Dylan's deck building presents, which is, I do not want to be blocking. That's not when these otters are at their best. That's not when most Prowess creatures are at their best. I would rather delay your threats, bounce them to hand, let you hit me if need be. Use my life total as a resource, because the amount of burst damage this deck can put out, at least when it's able to deploy additional threats past this turn 1 elusive otter, which I think, you know, Dylan is navigating their way towards. It's terrifying and basically unmatched except by Mightform Harmonizer.
Yeah, look, it is very much Dylan playing out their game plan here at this point. The ability to curate their hand repeatedly, making sure that they have sufficient spells to get significant damage through with that otter each turn, and feeling relatively safe. You know, this Selesnya landfall deck is the variant of the traditional green landfall deck that includes more removal in the form of a road. But I feel like if Samuel Torman was holding an erode in his hand, we might have seen it already.
And maybe that's why Dylan has been playing it slow so far, leaving mana up for the Secret Identity, which of course is also a defensive spell. And I mean, it's a bold call, Molly, but we saw a ton of people in the room, some of the best players in the region, register a very different build of Prowess, which goes bigger and has fewer threats that are more expensive. It doesn't play the Secret Identities. And a lot of those players did well, but they did not touch the top 8.
They are not here today, and Dylan Kakawa is.
And so is Mia Fountain on a nearly identical list. So there's something about this deck and maybe how it lines up against cards like Erode that has pushed it over the line here.
Yep. A Burst Lightning during the attack phase, taking out that Badgemole Cub and pumping that Otter even higher.
Yeah, and of course, you know, that's not the only creature on the battlefield, but Elusive Otter, it's not just a name. It is quite difficult to block, and the data shows that as people have gone back to this Otter recently, it is for its advantageous nature against landfall decks most of all.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, creatures with power less than this creature's power not being able to block it does mean that, you know, you can clog up the board with lots of small blockers, but that may not be effective against this Otter. So in that play, we saw the attempted Erode from Samuel Torman and exactly as you called it, Tom, the Secret Identity to protect that one single threat from Dylan Kakawa.
Yeah, I mean, especially when that's your only creature you've seen all game. You cannot let that Otter die. You have to keep it safe. It does...
Dylan has dug significantly into their deck and has not found another additional threat just yet. Either that or has been pushing them to the bottom, knowing that they have the capability of protecting it.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
So this is where, if anything, that unlucky draw from Dylan, that lack of a second threat may be punished, because Sam hasn't been making many moves aggressively so far, but the presence of Mightform Harmonizer completely changes the tone of this matchup. If that card can't be bounced to hand or removed immediately, you are on notice. It almost doesn't matter what your life total is, Molly. You could be facing down your last turn.
If Dylan can pump his Otter sufficiently, it may not matter, actually.
Oh, I mean, that's definitely what this deck would choose to do by preference. Going for the flow state on top of the Wild Ride. These combat tricks make the already fast Prowess build even faster, and not every opponent's ready for it.
The Wild Ride plus the flow state means that with Prowess and the Wild Ride pump on the Otter, the Harmonizer cannot block it. It'll be a 5/5, and therefore Dylan's representing lethal here.
Yeah, Sam thought he had something for a second, and Dylan's like, actually, I'm sorry, I'm afraid if you read these cards, you'll find you are dead.
Yeah, if that Badgemole Cub hadn't been removed exactly when Dylan removed it, Samuel would have had the capability of playing that Mightform Harmonizer and still having untapped creatures to be able to hit in with if desired.
Yeah, but, I mean, that's the kind of margins that you're playing with. This Prowess build, because it goes even smaller, right? You're playing even more cheap cards and cheap threats, and you can't afford to have that Otter not be large on a turn you need it to be unblockable. But the mastery of how they spend their resources, I feel like, has been the thing that sets Dylan apart. We've seen them on coverage multiple times already this weekend through the Swiss, and they have been so patient, just stone-faced, even in really difficult situations, waiting for the right moment to just drop their hand on the table and get the win.
It's very much a masterclass in how to patiently and calculatedly play this Team of Prowess deck, which is notoriously much more difficult than it looks.
But there's also a lot of skill expression in the sideboarding, obviously.
Yes. So we would love to see what both Dylan and Samuel have on offer for us in their sideboards as they go and get ready for Game 2.
Yeah. I mean, I hope that, obviously, the pressure is on Samuel Talbot, right? But also, not only because he's lost Game 1, I feel as though if you had to play just these two decks against each other with no sideboards, it's a really bad matchup for green-white. This is... Yeah,
I would agree with that, right?
Yeah.
It's a difficult matchup for green-white. The lack of low-to-the-ground removal and just the linear nature of those Selesnya landfall decks versus, you know, the transformative nature that we've been touting all weekend of the Izzet and Team of Prowess builds. All right, looking at Samuel Tobman's sideboard here, what are you thinking about, Tom?
First of all, I'm looking at the cards that need to come out, just because this is kind of a proactive deck and you don't want to over-sideboard. So you think, how many slots can I free up? And then how many slots do I have to bring in? And unfortunately for me, who I think Sam Tolman's list is really cool and different, the cards that make it cool and different are not here for this matchup, right? Like, it's common with a lot of the green-white decks. The tech is not for Prowess. So Felidar Retreat, it's such a slow card. Mossborn Hydra in the main, there's a reason not everyone here is playing that. Other players like Thomas Bott have intentionally left that out of the main board to be better against Prowess. Those cards are coming out. Meanwhile, in the sideboard, I think you maybe want the Surak Elusive Hunters if you're thinking of your threats. Those are going to trade better. And those 3 copies of Sheltered by Ghosts, if you do resolve one of those, it's such a high impact swing card that I would risk bringing it in against bounce spells from Dylan's deck just in case it sticks.
Yeah, look, even with a bounce spell on Sheltered by Ghost, the ability to recast it later is just, it's still valuable, right? Like Dylan's only buying themselves a turn, and maybe that's enough if it's on something with haste, like a show-off. But if it's not, then, you know, you are just netting yourself the ability to have lifelink on one of your generally much larger green threats.
Yeah, it's like every component of the card is good. Even if it only stays on your creature for 1 attack and you get a chunky lifelink swing, that kind of just burst life gain has been a huge indicator of success against all prowess builds for weeks now in Standard.
And it's also, you know, as you say, even if it does get bounced back to hand, as long as you're not immediately dead, you've now got reselection. You get to reevaluate the board in front of you and potentially choose to target a different threat with that removal.
Unfortunately, that is a pretty big if, right? That if you're not immediately dead, and it only gets bigger because Dylan, of course, also gets to sideboard and will change the threat and spell mix to be even more potent against Samuel's deck. So if we take a look at the Teamer aggro sideboard, obviously a lot of these cards are going to be familiar, but everyone has a slightly different take. And Dylan's is really interesting. The 2 color Storm Stallions, which are not in the main, are actually, there's 1 in the side, and there's 2 Drake Hatches, which is almost a whole other prowess deck's worth of threats, Molly.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely in a different deck from this one, a more diverse threat package, and something that I think that Dylan would definitely be considering here. Looking at things like Broadside Barrage, I imagine, just an ability to sweep up a lot of land-bended lands, Badgemole Cubs, and Llanowar Elves, all for the price of 1. Oh, sorry, Broadside Barrage being 5 damage. I'm thinking about Slagstorm here.
Yeah, I mean, Broadside Barrage is also good because 2 of the important, like, it's a deck of small creatures, but Ice Till Explorer and Mightform Harmonizer are really big targets, and those are 4 toughness each. So you could bring in, I wouldn't blame the Teamer deck for trying to become the control deck. I feel that's what a lot of players have tried to do this weekend. The question for me is, and I haven't really played Dylan's build, it's so aggressive that I wonder whether it discourages you from going that, you know, take out my threats, bring in removal, and try and just stall out the green player. But I think it would still be plausible just because Green-White doesn't have a lot of card draw, right? If you can stall their initial hand and they're stuck in top deck mode, I think that heavily favors Dylan.
We have seen that be the chosen approach of the Izzet and Teamer prowess deck player in our coverage over the 8 rounds of Swiss, is the transformation into a more controlling deck. So bringing in more of that low to the ground removal, like Seer, even having answers like a Null, and then also generally Ral Crackling Wit just for kind of a game closeout piece, because you are going to take the more controlling road of removing all of the early threats and not letting the green deck get rolling. The green deck, being the Selesnya deck in this case, being a very linear strategy in general, and if it doesn't have the pieces to really produce that threat, yes, it can still have explosive turns later in the game, but if you're preventing that inevitable rolling kind of ramp into those big threats, you can get a lot of damage in the late game as you stabilize.
Yeah, it's the green-white deck. I think the name of the game there is it's less, or it's greater than the sum of its parts if it gets its parts together, which means alone its cards are not as strong. If you can break them up with 1-for-1 interaction, that favors you heavily. So bringing in that cheap 1-for-1 interaction like Flash Freeze and Seer and all of that other stuff, and Null, as you said, going to be good here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very excited to see whether or not we're right. Let's see what plays out in Game 2 of our first match of the semi-finals of ANZ Super Series Adelaide, the regional championship here. Yeah,
that's the main reason we're here, and I'm sure all of you watching along at home as well, is to validate your own Magic skills by being right about what the players at the table are going to do. But for the players at the table, there are larger stakes at hand. And Sam, if Sam wants to make it more than just a Pro Tour invite, already a great story, an even greater story, maybe an invite to Worlds or a bigger share of the prize pool, Sam has to pull it out here in Game 2.
We are almost immediately validated in seeing a Sheltered by Ghost in Sam Torman's hand.
Thank you, Sam.
Yes. Tom appreciates your validation of his analysis and critique, Sam. So when you watch this back later, thank you. We appreciate you.
Yeah, you heard it here first, everybody. Sheltered by Ghost is a good card.
I think most of our watchers playing along at home might have already known that one, Tom.
I am, okay, yeah. I mean, jokes aside, I will give our viewers credit that they've seen this card and they've figured out that's a lot of text. That's probably pretty strong. Played it.
Turn 1, Elusive Otter again from Dylan. It's a very strong start. We saw it favour them very strongly in Game 1.
However,
I wonder if it can carry them to victory again.
Well, if it does, it'll be very impressive, and it is possible for it to do so, obviously. Dylan has cards like Secret Identity. There's still Justice Good here, and Dylan also drawing some great sideboard tech there. That's a Slag Storm for sure. But Sam, I think, has two copies of Sheltered by Ghosts, extremely shiny Sheltered by Ghosts over there. So that's, Dylan's deck doesn't have that many threats in it. Now, it's possible they boarded in some of those hatches or the extra stallion, but otherwise, you can basically count on one hand how many of those creatures you have to remove, and laying down a Sheltered by Ghosts gets Sam way ahead in this game if some of these creatures survive, if the Sheltered sticks. It's a lot of contingencies, but it's a strong game plan. I'm playing towards that if I'm in Sam's seat.
There's a lot of ifs in that statement there, Tom, so we will find out which of them play out. Slagstorm being a very valuable sideboard card, but also it will depend on the threat density of Dylan Kakawa's hand. They don't want to be killing their own Otter, but they're a long way off the correct number of lands to be able to have a 4/4 Otter and cast a Slagstorm in one turn.
Yeah, I mean, part of the reason we've seen Slagstorm be so prominent for these Izzet decks over the weekend as a sideboard piece is in these matchups, they do try and become the control deck. They're not usually concerned about playing early creatures as much as they otherwise would. Now, you basically always run out the Storm Chaser's talent. It's just such an engine for the deck. Converts all your Boomerang basics into huge value pieces. But yeah, you make a great point that it does make the Slagstorm sequencing slightly awkward for Dylan Kakawa.
Yeah, removing the mana generation of the Badgermole Cub, following it up immediately with another prowess trigger in Storm Chaser's talent, means that Otter swung in for 3. And it also meant that Samuel Torman has to play his Shockland untapped, take 2 damage to play the Sheltered by Ghosts, and is under enough pressure that he feels compelled to do that.
That Shockland really matters. Some matchups it matters less. This matchup it matters a lot, but hopefully one or both Sheltered by Ghosts are going to help buy some of that life back for Sam. I'm just amazed that this one copy of Impractical Jokes done sterling work for Dylan so far in the matchup.
Absolutely. We're also seeing a significantly more threat-dense hand here from Dylan Kakawa than we saw in the previous game. There's a Slickshot Show-Off there in hand, as well as a Boomerang Basics, which could definitely be targeting that Storm Chaser's talent.
Dylan in no hurry to deploy that would be why. In no hurry to deploy the show-off because you can fire off a Slagstorm, and the ward from Sheltered by Ghosts is useful in many situations in Standard,
but not this one. Yeah. So ward requiring active targeting because this is a all creatures effect off of the Slagstorm.
Yeah.
This is a perfect play from Dylan Kakawa. Freeze their Otter back up and onto their side of the board. However, unfortunately, losing their Storm Chaser talent Otter in the process.
We've traded one Otter for another, which is not ideal, but better than nothing. And Sam, loses a lot of resources there. It's quite unfortunate. You saw Sam pause there. That creature land could have tapped for mana, and there is a Snakeskin Veil even in Sam's main board, but unfortunately wouldn't be quite enough to rescue it from the Slagstorm. And I've been there. The moment you sort of pause just to sort of mentally say the last rites for your creature. There's no way to save it. Both players know, but Sam at least also not only one threat available to start this game. Immediately deploys that Earthbender Ascension. No annul landing home, at least this time.
Dylan tapped out at that point.
Yes.
But it's you also have to pay credit to these players. They are sitting here in our feature match in the top 8, fighting for a spot at Worlds. It's an incredibly stressful, very difficult situation on top of already playing a very complicated matchup, right? I'm not moving my creature into the graveyard until I've reread every single card in my hand and made sure that I'm not preemptively making a play. Because once that creature hits that graveyard, you don't want to be looking at your hand going, I should have responded to that.
I don't know how I'd cope if I realized I made that. At this level with these stakes, and especially for Sam, for Dylan, there is a little bit of a I've been here before factor. We know that Dylan is, an ice-cold player, great rep in the regional scene. Sam Tolman, I believe, has only just with this event earned his first Pro Tour qualification. So this is kind of uncharted territory for Sam.
What an incredible achievement. Congratulations, Samuel. So we're seeing prowess at 2 and the Otter swinging in as well as the show-off.
I mean, already this prowess deck is getting down to business. This could be a fast 2-0 in the quarters, which I'm sure Dylan would appreciate, the chance to, relax and even still those nerves a little bit more and get ready to face your semi-final opponent. But you can't get fully ahead of yourself here. We know that.
Well, Dylan already taking their show-off off of the table, assuming that the crack of that Fabled Passage and fetch for a plains means that there was an erode coming.
It's such a relatable thing. You prepare yourself mentally like, okay, that probably represents a plains, which represents an erode. This is going to die, and you're already giving up on the creature.
Dylan here playing chess at least three steps ahead of his opponent, or at least thinking 3 steps ahead.
Yeah. Implications for both players, though, because giving Dylan those additional lands, obviously Sam's deck is the one that, namesake cares about lands, but with Storm Chaser's talent, that engine is on board. There's Boomerang Basics in the yard. If Dylan can't get things finished in a hurry here, you are equipping them with the mana to overwhelm you even in a longer game.
Yeah, I mean, this Team of Prowess deck definitely thrives with just enough land, but as long as Dylan has the spells in their hand to keep cantripping through their deck to do that card selection, that means that they can ship any future lands to the bottom, they're in a really good position.
Is Sam's hand double sheltered by Ghost Snakeskin Veil? I saw the Veil and at least one Shelter. That would be a really rough... That would explain a lot about these lines, right? Sam is really thinking things through whenever these spells get cast, but struggling to have a creature to put all of this power into. Yeah,
it looks like he's choosing to activate Basing Say onto a tapped land so that they can then crack their Fabled Passage for an untapped land and play that Sheltered by Ghosts, I imagine the line.
Dylan nods solemnly there because that says a lot, right? If you have any other, of your deck's better threats in hand, even if you're not ready to try and say go for a Harmonizer play this turn, it feels like maybe you would Basing Say the fetch land because you're setting up one of those huge combo-like turns that the landfall decks have really become known for, where you can crack it, it gets returned to play, and then you can get as many landfall triggers as possible in the same turn.
Yeah, you're not cracking your Fabled Passage unless you absolutely have to. Here is Samuel Torman, and he is reading the play that is the case.
Wow.
Dylan is definitely in a commanding position where it feels like they have a lot of momentum and inevitability behind them right now.
Yeah, 11 life really does not feel like a lot against this deck. Okay, so that's a different card. That it's not another sheltered. But yeah, Sam feels pressured to immediately use some of this interaction. And it's interesting to me, you do have choices there, right? You could take the Elusive Otter or the token, which obviously won't come back even if the Sheltered by Ghost is returned to hand. And also the talent itself, which represents like a late game engine. So...
In Samuel Torman's hand right now, there's a Mightform Harmonizer and a 1-cost green card that I cannot read.
Could be Bushwhack, potentially, if it hasn't been played yet. I'm not sure.
I think it might be a Llanowell, because he would have played that out to
Well, he was holding
cast.
a Veil, so...
Yeah, okay, it's the Veil then.
It's the original art of Veil, I believe.
Yeah, I didn't see the art. It was sitting behind the other card. But it's...
We're working together to crowdsource the contents of Sam's hand. Okay, it's Harmonizer Veil.
Yeah.
Which is pretty good. That's a good hand.
It's solid, yeah, for
if you live to play the cards.
Particularly now that the Earthbender Ascension is on 4, they will have access to Trample, but no more landfall.
Yeah, and that's where they're really difficult. I mean, I'm not criticizing Sam. Obviously, you do what you have to do. You can't live for a future turn against a deck as explosive as Team of Prowess, but you that resource, that Fabled Passage right now.
We're seeing a level 2 on the Storm Chaser's talent, returning Boomerang Basics to Dylan Kakawa's hand currently.
I hope Sam doesn't end up thinking, if only I had Sheltered by Ghosted that Storm Chaser's talent, although, maybe you'd just be dead now. But
I think they would be at this point.
Dylan now making the infamous line of level up my talent, pick up Boomerang Basics, reset my talent to hand, replay my talent, draw a card into the bargain, and I can do this all again on future turns. So if you thought that you just had to stay alive, you also have to figure out a way to sort of uncouple this engine.
Yeah, just because your Storm Chaser's talent's now on 2 doesn't mean that that's the last time it will be on 2.
Yes. And of course, we have received one more additional cute little otter into the bargain, which is there ready to block this Sheltered by Ghosted up land. At least it's not difficult to block on Sam's end, which I assume is the rationale behind taking the Elusive Otter with that Sheltered. Sam Basing saying up the same land, really valuing the lifelink, you imagine.
Yeah. Not wanting to overcommit to the board with that Mightform Harmonizer until he has a land drop to follow it up.
I mean, it's a reasonable line, right? As long as this board state remains intact, I don't think Dylan's deck can beat 7, 9, 11 points of lifelink a turn. So you can just all in on this.
Yeah, absolutely. And the majority of Dylan's actual removal is damage-based, right? So the ability to kill a 5/5, or in this case a 6/5, is, sorry, from the Sheltered by Ghosts.
A 7/5? Oh no, it's 6/5. It is 6/5.
Yeah,
I don't know why I thought it was +2. So 6/5 is correct.
the ability to remove that with 5 damage would be reliant on Dylan having brought in that broadside barrage. Otherwise, Dylan's only answer would be a targeted bounce spell where they would have to pay the ward.
The one other option, and Dylan actually has the mana to pay the ward here, so you maybe prefer to bounce the land. But Dylan, if Dylan wants to set up a turn where they're mana efficient, there is the 1 copy of Into the Floodmoor, which could bounce the Shelter by Ghosts itself, which does not have ward. It's funny how little that comes up.
Yeah,
but
it definitely does. But you are giving your opponent access to another removal spell next turn. You do get your order back at least temporarily.
It feels like the play we saw yesterday in the matchup between Prowess and the High Noon Prison deck, where you're really, you know it's not a great long-term play, but because you're Prowess, you think, I can get them this turn, just as long as this doesn't, lifelink you for a bunch of life.
Yeah, and whilst Dylan is facing down this big lifelink threat, the real problem with bouncing that land back to hand is that enables Sam Torman's Mightform Harmonizer Earthbender Ascension deck, because all of a sudden there is a land in hand to do a land drop with.
And a player of Dylan's caliber is thinking about that. Like, Dylan hasn't even seen the Harmonizer, but you give these landfall decks credit, right? It can't go this long without drawing something powerful, and you're really wary about reloading their crucial resource, which is land drops.
When you are sitting at this table right now, you are often thinking about, how do I lose this match as much as how do I win it? And the answer that you have to have while you're sitting in that situation of how do I lose is assume the worst of the unknown cards in your opponent's hand. And in this case for Dylan Kakawa, the worst would be Mightform Harmonizer.
So Dylan's taking a long time here. I think they're trying to count to 14, which is pretty impressive, because Sam obviously has that lifelink creature, but it's not participating in the current turn's combat. There's only 1 green mana, which represents, at this point, pretty much just the Snakeskin Veil, and that may not be particularly relevant even if Dylan does think that Sam has it. And Dylan has a lot of mana for a Prowess deck. You have the cards in your hand. You could theoretically activate your talent to pick something up from the yard, although that might be too expensive to lead into an immediate winning line.
I think that's probably too expensive to deal full 14 damage this turn, but you are correct that I think Dylan is counting to 14, and a wild ride or two might get them there.
I can see a couple of those cards in hand, and one of them is Into the Floodmoor. That one of Dylan has seized upon it at the right time. The card selection from these list is unmatched, and so that represents an answer to Sheltered by Ghosts either now, or it could, I think maybe even the more conservative line is a 2-turn lethal, because Sam is going to, we already saw Basing Say on that land, right? Sam is all in on this lifelinking land. If you remove that lifelink and don't die to the actual damage of the hit, you could leave your opponent in a state where they're really overcommitted, having expected to be out of your reach.
There's a secondary line there that Dylan may also be considering. Into the Floodmoor being an instant speed spell is one of the ways that they can foil a Mightform Harmonizer from Sam Torman. Any Mightform Harmonized threat would need the Earthbender Ascension on the field on 4 to be able to apply trample to that threat to actually get damage through Dylan.
That is true.
So, you would gain a lot of life, yes, absolutely, but Dylan themselves would not be dead.
I mean, it shows the power of this one-off, and not every Prowess list is on any copies of Into the Floodmoor. It's almost more common to see Bounce Off, and not even all players are on that, but I do feel like that has been one of the really important pieces of tech this weekend, because there's so many spots like this where the difference between being able to sorcery speed bounce your own cards, as good as Boomerang Basics is, and being able to interact even just temporarily with one of your opponent's permanents is massive.
Yeah, look, letting your opponents on their Selesnya landfall deck go off with their Mightform Harmonizer and, potentially a World Wagon or...
That's brave gameplay.
Yeah, or an Earthbender Ascension, letting them go off and then going, sure, here is a bounce spell.
Well, I was talking the whole time about how Dylan has Nerves of Steel. You saw the brief clutch of the temples there, so even the toughest and most weathered of players can be feeling the pressure here at our top tables. Dylan really understands fully the consequences. If you attack with one too many otters here, you could just outright lose the game. Sends only the single 1/1 across the table. Sam immediately just goes, oh, I'll take that one.
Yeah. Sam, in saying absolutely I will take that, knows that there is significantly more damage at risk here than just that one damage from the order, but that is what came in.
Yeah, if I'm in Sam's seat and I had no blocker and 1 green there, I'm very happy to see 1 auto attack for 1 damage, even though you know that means that everything is coming for you next turn, and the plotted slick shot show-off from Dylan confirms that. I think next turn is go time.
Yeah, explosive turn we are anticipating from Dylan Kakawa next turn. Samuel anticipating that too.
So what will Sam's line be here? He has the Harmonize, right? He could represent a ton of damage, ton of lifelink.
Did you see what Sam drew this turn?
I did not.
Okay, I didn't either. That's
Oh, okay.
why I'm asking, I'm sorry.
No, I thought you were about to reveal something really exciting. I mean, we will be in suspense. But Sam, whatever it was, Sam activates Barsing Say again.
Trying to buffer the life total there.
That's so interesting because, I mean, I guess if Sam has no other land drop, then the Harmonizer can't do it. But that is so painful because the Harmonizer would both be more efficient and represent a blocker for Dylan's turn.
You don't want to present your only win condition, your biggest threat for removal before it's relevant. You just cannot. And we can see a Burst Lightning there in Dylan Kakawa's hand. They can't cast it this turn with Kicker, but they could next turn if a Harmonizer were to hit the field.
I mean, that's true, but if I'm Sam, I've been holding the Snakeskin Veil the entire game. I have to feel like I've got get some value out of it sometime, and this might not even be the spot because I think this is targeting the Sheltered by Ghost. I mean, the Snakeskin Veil has been so obvious, right? Dylan would not just walk into it, and we're gifting a fish, confirming this is targeting a non-creature permanent. Yeah. So that is so unfortunate for Sam. The one spot the Snakeskin Veil won't help you.
And Dylan knowing that they can just afford to take 7, go to 3, and that Sam Torman is very likely dead next turn, particularly now having majority tapped out. Yep, and the no ward on the actual Sheltered by Ghost itself coming in clutch here as well.
I mean, Sam has to do that. He deploys a Lanois Elves to get a blocker on board, but that means he is visibly tapped out for Dylan Kakawa. And, I mean, what's so impressive is Dylan doesn't know the contents of Sam's hand, but Dylan has been reading Sam as well as we can, and we're seeing the cards. So, but now with your opponent tapped out, I think that's a pretty clear green light to any prowess player. Now we will be counting to 13.
Yes, absolutely. That slick shot show off immediately coming in from the plot zone to reap the benefit of all possible prowess triggers.
Was that the draw for this turn? Another Boomerang Basics. That's so much damage. That, I mean, the mass might have been good enough before, but now it seems inevitable for Dylan.
Absolutely. We are watching a massacre play out in this moment with all of this prowess.
Oh, no. The poor elf. 5 damage. That's so much overkill, firing a Death Star laser at a humble mana elf.
Yeah, and a Burst Lightning likely to the face at this point.
Wow, that's... We're counting, but I haven't done the maths, Molly. That's sure...
It is more than enough. Each auto being 5 damage each. Slick shot show off currently at 13.
Yeah.
And 2 damage to the face via that Burst Lightning also. Just Dylan making sure that was more than comprehensive as a victory right there in front of us in our first of 4 quarterfinals matches that are currently being played, 2 of which we will have on coverage for you.
Yeah, that's not even all our quarterfinal action. But before we see off our first quarterfinalist there, unfortunately, to exit the top 8, Samuel Talbman, I want to give credit. That looked like a really tough match. I really respect committing to the line on the Sheltered by Ghost, identifying how important the lifelink was. And Dylan had been so patient with a card that's only a one-of in the whole 75. I think you're allowed to assume that card might not be there and you can ride the Sheltered by Ghost to victory, but it shows the incredible game sense of Dylan to know the right time when it's going to so devastate your opponent to suddenly be missing that lifelink and then dead on the crackback.
And as you said, it's really tempting to have targeted the creature land in that instance as well, which would have been blown out via the Snakeskin Veil in Sam Torman's hand. So Dylan really making incredibly good, well thought out choices all the way through that game. Congratulations, Dylan. That was a decisive win, and we will see you again soon in the semi-finals.
Yeah, worthy of our #1 seed, who will remain, I suppose, for now, the favourite to take things out and claim that World's invite. But of course, there are other Magic players who may have something to say about that, and we're going to go and see 2 of them play their quarterfinal now. This is Hanbin Zhou on the Teamer Omniscience deck, and I believe fighting against that deck that you said you wanted to see more of, and I concur, Molly. This is Mardu, aggro, discard, but for those who haven't seen the deck, it's self-discard. It's you are discarding your cards to power your aggro up and make the game end even faster.
I love this deck. This deck rose to prominence. I think it came second in the end at the Spotlight Series London, taking down one of the key places in that incredibly large tournament. But it's been really fun. I've been doing a lot of reps with this deck. I think it's incredibly aggressive. It's got a great powerhouse as well as just a really strong utility cards all the way across its list.
If we're pulling back the veil here, Molly, I have also been repping this deck, maybe more than any of the others here. I mean, Mardu, these are my colors. I love a thinking person's aggro list. They're all thinking person's aggro list, but I don't play a lot of blue decks. So the fact that this deck has so much activated abilities and so much play to it really tickles my brain in the right way. I love Mardu colors, and I love all of the different cards that this deck is playing, which no other deck in Standard would even touch. What is an Iron Shield Elf, you might reasonably say, if you've just been watching Landfall versus Prowess all weekend? Well, Scott Aitchison is here to show you a player who I believe went undefeated, did not lose a match in the Swiss, drew against Mono Green, drew again in the final round of the day, but has not been put down yet, and up against another sort of rogue deck contender in Teamer Omniscience.
Yeah, we are seeing a Taser Light Shatter there on the field, a very powerful 3-mana creature that allows you to discard up to 2 cards and draw that many cards. Those cards hitting the bin, assuming they're permanents, also bumping up your Moonshadows. Yeah,
it's a bit pricey, 3 mana. I mean, I wouldn't always pay 3 for a card, and this is the most expensive thing in the deck, but it does so much for you, not only representing 3 hasty damage, but yes, triggering all your other cards, potentially multiple times, and in the late game, if you don't have removal, this is another card like the talent that kind of grows beyond its unassuming initial impact to become a huge engine.
Yeah, the secondary element on Taser Light Shatter is very important here because it gives you the ability to recast some of the spells out of your graveyard once you hit, I think it's 6 cards.
Yes,
seven or more cards in your graveyard, sorry. It becomes 6 because you immediately exile one of them.
Yeah, exactly. 6 other cards. And meanwhile, Hanbin has actually made an early play, which this deck doesn't always do. This is one of the most pure combo decks I've ever seen go deep in an event like this, and Hanbin Zhou has been the only player to make it work. Several other quite qualified and respected players repped very similar decks, crashed out almost immediately, maybe running into some of the more polarizing matchups this deck has, but whether, you know, through some combination of skill and finesse, Hanbin is here playing for huge prizes and looking great here in game 1. That is Kona Rescue Beastie on the battlefield. Normally, the first 2 pieces of the combo are there, and Scott Aitchison, it looks bad, but you actually have to be in relief here. You have not seen Omniscience.
Yeah, the fact that off that tapped Kona Rescue Beastie, there was just a Meringue River Regent and not an Omniscience is definitely a breath of relief, particularly because those Moonshadows weren't particularly large yet at this point.
Yeah, it does hurt to have to redeploy those cards. I think it is a weakness of this Mardu aggro deck, which people are, as you said, the deck's had a mercurial rise over the last 2 or 3 weeks from sort of a noteworthy also ran to second place to winning some events, but it can be stymied in ways that the Prowess decks can't, because even if you redeploy those Moonshadows, they're obviously much smaller now. Same thing with Marauding Maker or Hardened Academic. These creatures all need time to scale up, whereas Hanbin goes from 0 to 1,000,000 instantly, and even without the namesake Omniscience, this Meringue River Regent could carry the game.
Yeah, I say that Scott Aitchison is breathing a breath of relief, but are you ever breathing a breath of relief when you're facing down a 6/7 flyer? I'm not sure I am.
That's a good point. I mean, everything's relative, Molly. There are some people who would be glass half full and say, hey, look, you could be going to game 2 right now. You could be looking at your sideboard, because if Omniscience comes down and there's Northwind Avatar to follow, that is almost entirely the game. There are very little things that your opponent can do from there. And even when your opponent is in this spot, as Scott, most players this weekend have had to just look at Hanbin and go, do you have it? Because an X3 Kona is really difficult for a lot of these decks to interact with in the small window you have. Now, Scott does come prepared with better removal, so I thought this might be a matchup that tests Hanbin a bit more.
Yeah, you almost always, as the opponent of this Teamer Omniscience deck, want to be removing that Kona Beastie as soon as possible. It's something that as soon as that hits the battlefield, before your opponent can, or before the player on the Omniscience deck can use can use one of their station lands to tap the Kona, you want that off the board.
Yeah, you have a short window before the ability actually resolves, and if you don't use it, you may never get another chance.
Yeah, so Scott Aitchison having multiple main decker roads as his best answer for this Kona.
Yeah, the other removal spells in the deck, though, are Burst Lightnings. Those won't do it unless you have an improbable amount of mana for this deck, so it's really all in on those roads. And there's one of them fired off, not on Kona, but I guess Scott's saying, well,
I think that's correct.
I agree. Sorry, I wasn't criticizing Scott, to be clear.
Yeah, look, I think that that's a really well-practiced play here from Scott. I think that removing the 6/7, knowing that that was the best threat that Hanbin could deploy from his hand when casting a free spell with Kona in the previous turn is super relevant. So making sure that that Meringue River Regent is off the battlefield, cannot block, and also if there were more river regents to follow in subsequent turns, they trigger each other, they can bounce off each other, and you can get a whole sequence of plays in this Team Omniscience deck that you don't want happening. So removing that as a bounceable threat is super valuable here for Scott Aitchison.
Yeah, that's true. One Meringue River Regent is a problem. Two of them is nearly a win. That's actually how the deck wins. Not the card Omniscience, you noted yesterday, I think, doesn't actually beat your opponent.
Non-deterministic.
You do require additional spells afterwards in most cases to end the game, and the Regents generally are what get it done for Hanbin. So Scott taking one of those off the battlefield, obviously there's still two more in the deck, one more in the side that can be wished for with the Northwind Avatar that is sort of the deck's other key piece. But Scott is also thinking, I think, about how can you end this game, because you do not want to give Hanbin time to draw into an Omniscience. You're basically dead to that. And we haven't seen it yet, but Scott's got a couple of cards in hand. By clearing away that dragon, there's no flying blocker. So if you happen upon one of those really powerful new Secrets of Strixhaven cards, Hardened Academic, that is cracking in for damage unimpeded.
Yeah, absolutely. Hardened Academic, one of my favorite cards that came out of Secrets
of
Strixhaven.
Cool.
Yep. Another one of the examples, I must say, of an owl with both hands, feet, and wings.
You're really harping on that. Why are you going to give these birds a hard time?
Oh, look, just come on. Anyway.
Bird hands.
Yeah, why so many bird hands?
He's really showing off the bird hands in that art as well. That's like a jutsu pose.
Yeah, but we are seeing another Meringue River Regent from Hanbin Zhou.
Wow.
Repeating the same effect from last time, bouncing both of those Moon Shadows back to hand. Obviously not bouncing the Taser. They don't want Scott to get that double discard, double redraw effect, but definitely is a road choice on that Meringue River Regent. So Meringue River Regent bouncing two cards back to their owner's hands on entry, and generally how this combo goes off, as Tom alluded to earlier, is it will target the other Meringue River Regent and one of the opponent's creatures, and then recast that Meringue River Regent for free, generally via Omniscience, and just continue that cycle until all of the non-land permanents on your opponent's side of the board have disappeared.
I'm really glad we're seeing the match play out like this, Molly, because I think, at least in the match of Hanbin's that I was present for on commentary, the deck kind of just did its thing. It just worked. You put Kona into play, you tap it with a station land, you play an Omniscience, you show them an Avatar, or in one game, sorry, Hanbin had to work a bit harder. He had to cast an ill-timed Explosion to go slightly deeper in the deck, and then immediately drew the Avatar and cast it. And then the game just kind of ends on the spot. You know, your opponent doesn't really have much to say there. This time we're seeing that the deck can play other cards. It can play a game where it doesn't draw Omniscience, because this is going to be a percentage of your games. The deck doesn't have powerful tutors. It doesn't even have that much card draw, Molly. So it's impressive. Hanbin has to have had a plan B to get this deep in the tournament. Yeah,
look, absolutely. And the Avatar that Tom's referring to as part of the combo there is the Northwind Avatar, allowing Hanbin to pull from his sideboard outside the game and pull things in to close that game
This
out.
card is a real, before we show it on screen, guess it if you know it. What does this card do? Lost in the Maze. Okay, apparently your time is up there, but it is a protective spell with cool modes.
Yeah, so Lost in the Maze almost always being cast for 0 here. It's not about the stun. The stun is useful if you're behind against aggro decks, but it gives your Kona hexproof, and it means that you can continue to tap it. It's often on the field as an anticipatory play before the Kona. So one of the ways that this Team Omniscience deck guarantees that there's no interaction with their combo is by using the Cavern of Souls on Beast to make sure that their Kona is uncounterable, and then by casting something like the Lost in the Maze just to give their tapped creature hexproof. Generally that means that when stationing, they're doing that in response to a removal spell to tap the Kona and make it a tapped creature.
Well, speaking of it, in response, Scott's able to fire off his second Erode there, and that takes out the Kona just in the nick of time as well. So Hanbin will have to find not just an Omniscience, but a second Kona, one assumes.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was very timely in response to that Lost in the Maze to make sure that the combo will not continue on Hanbin Zhu's side of the board.
Because once that loss, like, you don't even really get to play around it the way you would something like Snakeskin Veil, because it becomes hexproof as soon as it becomes tapped, and that's as a cost. So that's really your only window to try and get past Hanbin's defensive tools. And between that and Cavern of Souls, you can start to see how this seemingly straightforward combo deck can be quite difficult to attack for a lot of lists. But Scott has been able to survive thus far, still not making great inroads on Hanbin's life or board state, and now that he's spent his erodes, that Morang River region is likely to stick around long term. It's to draw something powerful in a hurry, maybe a copy of Rude but Cool that can kind of just go face in spite of these blockers.
We can see Scott Aitchison reading the Kavaron Memorial World station land that is on Hanbin's side of the board. It's currently hit 8, so it's not currently at its full 12, but it does have an ability to pay 2, sacrifice a land, create a 2/2 colorless robot artifact token.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then creatures you control get +1/+0 and hasten. So definitely a win condition for Hanbin in these kind of grindy, slower matchups where they can just continue to station it until it's active and then hopefully provide some late game value for them.
Yeah, an additional dimension we almost haven't seen it all this weekend, but Hanbin immediately reaches for it when necessary. Scott, also realizing the danger, pushes his foot down on the pedal quite hard here. Cool but Rude and Hardened Academic, two of the deck's strongest engines, Molly, especially in concert.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's really interesting that station land there from Hanbin. Haste is really relevant to this combo. You can drop both your Morang regions and you can bounce them back and you can clear your opponent's board, but often you then have to pass the turn and say, I'll kill you next turn. And even the same thing with the Northwind Avatar, unless you're fetching up something with haste, you're in a little bit of trouble, but this land, getting them out of that bind, I think that's a really great addition from Hanbin Zhu.
Yeah, if Hanbin has to go all the way and try to win this game without ever deploying an Omniscience, I am really curious to see how he puts it together, because as you say, it becomes much harder. If you have the Omniscience, Hanbin is actually the rudest Omniscience player I've seen, I think. I think nearly every other list of this deck I've noticed online or in other events has some card that just actually wins the game the turn you have Omniscience, usually by recurring and enters the battlefield ability that does damage to the opponent's life total, right? And you can use the Morang River Regents to reset it. But Hanbin has decided that sideboard slot is a waste and unnecessary because you don't need to kill your opponent. You can just recur, extinguish a battle station to destroy every single one of their lands and kill all of their creatures and leave them with absolutely nothing on board, play a bunch of dragons and pass turn, and Hanbin has the overwhelming confidence that he can win the game from there.
You say that Hanbin is this deck is the rudest, but is it cool?
I think actually Scott has a sort of trademark on that, does have a card named that in play, which is, I mean, maybe the most important or strongest card in the deck, it feels like these days.
Yeah.
It really powers a lot of what you're doing, especially when normal combat breaks down. If your opponent's able to stabilize like this, you are looking to Cool but Rude to save you.
Yeah, whenever you attack, you may discard a card if you do draw a card. So the ability to filter the cards in your hand, continue to draw more gas to fuel your deck, but also comboing, as you mentioned, really well with the Hardened Academic.
So Scott passes turn, but this is similar to the matchup we saw before. It's not a prowess deck, but it's a similar kind of explosive list. I think Scott was just counting there to make sure, how can I have lethal next turn, because I'm pretty close. Cool but Rude, if you have any cards in hand, along with Hardened Academic, it lets you discard cards at will for no cost. Can just turn every single card in your hand into shock. If you play a land, there's Bloodghast in the graveyard that will then leave the graveyard that represent additional points of damage because Hardened Academic has a second line of text. And then even if you don't line up those plays, Tersa Light Shatter, I think we're getting pretty close to 7 cards in the graveyard. So there's actually, even if Scott's empty-handed, a shocking amount of play here for the Mardu aggro deck.
There's some really great tech in this Mardu aggro deck that I love. This
it's
card,
so cool.
Practice Offense. So one of the one of the most incredible cards to be able to discard either to Hardened Academic or Cool but Rude, because as soon as it hits your graveyard, you can then use it for the flashback cost, which will trigger your Hardened Academic to put +1/+1 counters on your team, as well as actually the effect of the Practice Offense of putting a +1/+1 counter on your whole team and giving one target creature either lifelink or double strike.
Yeah.
Incredibly powerful addition from Secrets of Strixhaven that has made this Mardu discard deck just take it to the next level.
This spell carried me completely in my first Secrets of Strixhaven draft playing Black-White, and I thought to myself, this is crazy strong. I wonder if this will go anywhere in other formats. And then immediately it appears not only in this deck, which of course can really make it work, going for the discounted flashback cost, but a lot of the Azorius Momo decks are also playing it, even without the ability to skip that initial cast. They're happy to just play either side. So I think Practiced Offense, probably a card we're going to be seeing more of in Standard here long-term in a lot of shells.
I am personally also happy to play it for either its real cost or flashback
Maybe
cost.
even both.
It's one of my favorite cards out of the new set. I think it's incredibly powerful.
And the jumpsuits and the artwork, also powerful. Great look. Let's get physical.
We all love a team sport.
Scott has the team ready here. I think he's about to make sport out of Hanbin because unfortunately, again, this Omniscience deck, it's not control. It has a little bit of interaction, but it's a lot of stuff like Lost in the Maze that's really oriented around ensuring your combo goes through. I think Hanbin's game plan is, I meant to have drawn Omniscience by now, guys.
But that was a very bold attack from Hanbin. Coming in with that Meringue River Regent, knowing that you're on 5 life facing down 4 creatures, there maybe must be something in hand. Hanbin does have 3 cards in hand currently. Are we expecting either an activation to create a robot from his... No, the land is still not at 12. So we're expecting some kind of instant speed interaction from him.
There's not a lot. I mean, it might be just a case where you have to kind of hope your opponent misplays. There are some bounce-offs and into the Floodmaw. That's about it as far as the main deck goes. But I think Hanbin, with the arrival of Cool But Rude, you have to also pick up your own pace because there's no way for Hanbin to gain life that I'm aware of or really interact with that card favorably at all. And it just turns every draw into shock, so you are dead really fast. Yeah,
I think that one of the cards in Hanbin's hand has to either be a bounce off or an Into the Floodmaw. Either that or he's just trying to represent that. But that attack feels very reckless from the Meringue River Regent, so there must be a reason for that. Hanbin is a very storied player and has made it up here to the top 8 quarterfinals right now. And I don't think is just attacking into dead air for no reason whilst on 5.
Well, Scott has those Moonshadows are what, 3/3s right now?
Currently 3/3s, yes.
They're 3/3s with Menace. So even if the Meringue River Regent was untapped, you could only block 1, which he can still block 1 creature this way, right? So I think he's...
I imagine if he'd hung back with the Meringue River Regent, it would have been designed to block the Hardened Academic or the Taser, either way.
But then you're still dead.
I think we're considering level 2 of Cool But Rude right now.
I admit I had gotten ahead of myself. I had so assumed that we were going to level 2 of Cool But Rude here because you don't need that card in your hand necessarily unless it's like the best card in your deck as Scott, which would be Practiced Offense, which you would discard because Tersa is going to trigger on this attack as well. And I suppose that you might play a land. Hanbin's below 10 life. If you bring back those Bloodghast, that's a massive swing.
We can't see all of Scott Aitchison's graveyard. It might actually only be 6 cards in the graveyard, so the Tersa... Oh, off the discard from the hand. Yep, I understand.
I think he's got a... Look, you're right. We can't see it. I think there's one more card there in the bottom of the frame. And Hanbin, does have at least 1 bounce spell, but I think Hanbin needs at least 2.
I think that's likely correct.
I mean, you haven't drawn Omniscience. You must have drawn something. Maybe that's what Hanbin has.
Yeah, it's interesting that he's playing that bounce off now.
Yeah, I wonder...
We don't have an attack yet, and the Hardened Academic actually has haste.
I mean, that may have been the beginning of the combat step.
Maybe.
To give credit to Hanbin.
Most likely, but we did just get a tick up on the Cool But Rude, so it's maybe just a sequencing error that we're seeing.
Maybe. Tick up Cool But Rude, go to combat, because Scott can also delay discarding with the Academic, assuming that card's not one he wanted to use in the main phase. And we're about to find out how close we are to combat. Scott's not just going to pass turn here. I'm pretty confident of all the calls I make today in saying that.
I can agree with that one, Tom. I think we are definitely going to see some things turn sideways from Scott Aitchison, and as many of them as possible.
It's so hard to be Hanbin in this spot, though, because I think this is Scott. I mean, and he's entitled to his time here because this is probably a tournament-saving attack. And Hanbin has the second bounce spell. He gifts the fish because he just wants to live through this turn, and that is a massive swing, returning Cool But Rude. Now can he survive?
Yeah.
Oh, it was still the main phase.
Yeah, so it was still main phase. So a land drop returns those Bloodghasts. They have haste because Hanbin is on 5 life, and therefore this will be it.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. Okay.
That was an incredibly difficult spot for Hanbin. He played it out, and credit to him, but Scott made sure he absolutely extracted all of Hanbin's removal before deciding on his course of action and driving home that winning attack. He goes up in this quarterfinal.
A very tight game there from both. The Team White getting to do what it set out to do. As you said, you very much want to be dropping that Omniscience straight off that Kona, a card that is incredibly difficult for this Mardu discard deck to actually deal with. I don't think it's any artifact removal, any enchantment removal at all in the main deck.
I'm pretty sure there's none. So even in the sideboard, I don't really know if there's anything adequate. You have to just stop it coming into play.
You absolutely just have to stop it coming into play. Let's have a look at those side decks and sideboards and see what those players might be bringing in. So looking at Hanbin, I would be optimizing for removal here.
Yeah, fair to say.
So 2 Origins of Metal Bending, the ability to... sorry, here we go. Destroying target artifact or enchantment.
To deal with cool but rude.
Very valuable here. A Braid as a good utility removal spell. Anything 3 damage straight to the face is super important.
Do you like Pyroclasm?
I think I do like Pyroclasm. I think that this deck often goes... turn 1 Moonshadow, turn 2 Moonshadow something else, or Hardened Academic. And if you can catch them before they get big, it would be super valuable to take out multiple threats from a kept hand at 7.
And there is almost always a window of a turn or two. Like, those creatures will outscale a Pyroclasm, but rarely immediately. You just kind of have to get a few steps past that, and Hanbin could pounce with an extra Pyroclasm, more chance of having it in the opener. That could be a great way to steal a march in this game.
I would definitely be looking at that ill-timed explosion that's sitting there. That would be coming straight in.
Along the same lines.
Anything that's going to generate value for you as a Team or Omniscience deck, where you can do more than one thing with your card, is going to be where you want to be.
Now, obviously, Hanbin did actually manage to resolve Kona's ability in that game and just didn't have the Omniscience at that time to win. But then we did also see the impact of Scott's Erodes taking away key creature pieces as one of the most important pieces of interaction you could have against Omniscience. So is there any consideration for Hanbin to bring in more defensive interaction?
I would consider definitely looking at that second Lost in the Maze. That Hexproof is going to be super valuable. You are always playing this card for 0, almost always.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's nice that it has an option, right? It's like the Adventure on the Otter. It's there.
It's a 2-drop for those playing along at home. It may say X next to the blue, but it is mostly blue. I would also be looking at that Soul Guide Lantern for all of the reasons that we discussed earlier around the graveyard synergy of the discard deck.
True. It's better. We did see one awkward interaction on coverage, I think, where Scott's opponent or another Mardu player's opponent had a Ghost Vacuum or a similar card, and you can run into trouble if there's a Hardened Academic on the battlefield. You end up fueling your opponent's Owl. But I think in this case, Hanbin is happy to give you 1 counter in return for your whole graveyard. Your
whole graveyard, absolutely. And really making sure that you can get all of those Bloodgusts out before they come back at you, and also that Teysa has a limited number of cards to choose from if there's even 7 to trigger.
And that's really all that Hanbin has to consider, because a lot of the cards in this sideboard are really just there for Northwind Avatar to grab when you already have Omniscience. You're never sideboarding in Extinguish a Battleship, Improvisation, Capstone, this sort of thing. So, there is a select few cheaper cards you can kind of see from the mana value that Hanbin might feasibly consider. Beyond that, the rest of those cards are there for you to grab during the game.
Let's have a look at Scott Aitchison's sideboard and have a gander at what they might have to bring to this matchup. I'm looking at it here. I've got the list in front of me. I would be looking at a couple of different things. He's got 2 copies of a Doorkeeper Thrall, which is a creature, a 2-cost, 1 and a white, flash and flying. Artifacts and creatures entering the battlefield don't cause abilities to trigger.
That's definitely the first thing I looked at, right? Because that is, talking about, we mentioned, I don't know if he has interaction for the combo. That's interaction for some of the combo. You can't stop Kona, but without the Morang River Regent, without the Northwing Avatar enters the triggers, that Omniscience, I don't know if Hanbin necessarily has anywhere to go with it in those spots. I think in a lot of cases you're assuming if Omniscience gets onto the battlefield, the rest is autopilot. But a flashed in Doorkeeper Thrall could really catch you out.
Yeah, and there's no there's no sideboard answers to the Omniscience either. So as you called it earlier, Tom, it's really just about preventing that Omniscience hitting the battlefield by removal of Kona, removal of any of the other combo pieces, and their effectiveness.
I think those Doorkeeper Thralls are in the place of Requisition Raid, which might normally be your one answer, but Scott deciding we can go for attack from a different angle here, and I actually think in this case it stands him in better stead. What
do you think Scott's taking out for those Doorkeeper Thralls? It's probably the only addition for him in this sideboarding. So I'm looking at those Burst Lightning. I don't think you're doing a whole lot for me here. 2 to the face is fine.
Yeah.
And might just close out the game, but it's the only thing that's really like not going to impact his ability to just execute his own game plan here.
Right, and the first thing I look for is actually Requiting Hex, which is in a lot of these lists alongside some combination of Burst Lightning and Erode, but Scott, credit to the choices that brought him here, actually doesn't have any Requiting Hex in the main, so he's sort of pre-sideboarded in that case, and I think Burst Lightning...
one in the board as well. That's a bold choice from Scott Aitchison.
It's been a Requiting Hex meta, but I suppose you have 2 other really good 1-mana instant speed options. You're spoiled for choice in Mardu for killing creatures. So Burst Lightning, I agree, Molly. I think that's what's got to come out. You want to kill your opponent quickly, but the Burst Lightning really only does 2 damage in this deck. You're almost never kickering it, and your creatures represent more damage than that. You're not even really needing to clear away blockers as much, so just keep those erodes to stop the combo and then bring in more damage.
A very simple sideboarding plan here for Scott Aitchison. I believe that we've managed to hit that one on the head, but we are about to find out. We're about to go back to Game 2 of Scott Aitchison versus Hanbin Zhou, our second quarterfinal match for you here at ANZ Super Series Regional Championship Adelaide.
Yeah, so Scott now one step closer to remaining undefeated. Again, one of our impressive players. I think Thomas Bott maybe is the other who has not yet dropped a game. But in this case, obviously, your record in the Swiss, it matters to you. It's how you got here, but it won't actually save you if you fall out of contention here against Team Omniscience. It could happen to so far. Some of the fastest Swiss rounds we saw, Molly, featured Hanbin just crushing his opponent.
Look, you are right to an extent, Tom. So your record in the Swiss, however, does determine who plays and who is on the draw.
That is true. That seeding matters. You're right. I mean, how dare I, a Magic player, underestimate or undersell the importance of winning the die roll, or in this case, securing the die roll for yourself in advance?
Exactly. Particularly with the aggressive nature of the majority of the decks in this top 8, being on the play is a huge advantage.
Scott being kind enough to show us another half of the deck. These are cards we did not see in Game 1, with the exception of Bloodghast briefly at the end there, but they're pretty strong in their own right. Inti, Sentinel of the Sun, still hanging around here in standard from Lost Cannons Vixalan, and a more recent and, I guess, lesser-known play, Iron Shield Elf.
And Iron Shield Elf and its discard capability doing a huge amount of work here. You're seeing the combo side of this discard deck. So on attack, Scott Aitchison discarded a Bloodghast to give the Iron Shield Elf indestructible. Also triggered the Inti, which allowed him to exile the top card of his library and play that this turn, which happened to be a land, returning the Bloodghast immediately.
And while the Iron Shield Elf, it doesn't have quite as much juice as Hardened Academic does in terms of all the things Academic can do, the indestructibility, you're often just looking to discard a card, but it's not nothing, because here's a Pyroclasm from Hanbin. That draw we said was basically the best thing he could get, and normally that would sweep up your whole board, Academic or no, but the Elf is indestructible, Molly.
It was huge. It played out exactly as you were describing before you even knew the play, Tom. But Pyroclasm, as we anticipated, coming in from the board just to try and sweep up the majority of threats. And the Inti trigger finding another land for Scott Aitchison. He'll not be looking for any more lands this game, I imagine. Yeah, Indestructible Elf having the resilience to make it through that Pyroclasm. We're seeing a bounce off, though.
Okay, we are correct. Yeah, Coolbet Root is level 2. That's one of, I feel it's, you're always excited for Coolbet Root, but it is one of the toughest parts of this deck, is knowing when to both play and level it up, because that's a very significant minor investment for a deck that does not want many lands, right? I think you're right in saying 4 is about the maximum you ever want. So you just committed your whole turn to, as it happened there, be vulnerable to interaction, end up adding no damage, do not increase your clock in any way. This Coolbet Root itself not doing very much, and
that was a huge tempo play, that bounce off from Hanbin Zhou, not only buying himself some more turns, but also he played out that Kona, but with no station land, there's no way to tap it currently.
I guess it could always attack.
It could, but it's given Scott the opportunity to have an extra turn to find a removal spell for it.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I suppose Hanbin, either this is the 5 millionth IQ move of all time, Or Hanbin is just accepting, okay, this is the one time I didn't draw my station lands. There's only 8. There has to be some percentage of games where you don't find it.
Exactly.
Can I afford to wait around against this deck until I draw one? Probably not.
Probably not. And so we've seen Teysa enter. We've seen 2 cards discarded from Scott Aitchison, including the Iron Shield Elf that had come off the battlefield earlier to draw 2 cards. Hanbin was just clarifying, is this the cool but rude trigger? And Scott said, no, not yet. I haven't attacked yet. You will find out when I do.
This is my other draw discard trigger. Teysa has entered the battlefield this turn, and so Scott was cycling some cards, perhaps trying to find one of those erodes. There's no extra erodes in the sideboard, so you're still just on those 2 copies, and that Kona is so threatening right now. I guess that's what Hanbin has done, is like your opponent could remove this, but you put it in their mind. You have to, whatever you were planning to do with your next turn, you have to deal with this.
But that cool but rude being on level 2 means that that double Teysa discard dealt Hanbin 4 damage.
Oh, it's not nothing at all, right? Without that Kona there, I think Scott would be, trying to counter lethal, if not now, very soon. Yeah. But you have to take a detour now, because otherwise you are taking an equally big risk and bold move to say, okay, do you have Omniscience then? Just as Hanbin has said, do you have removal for my Survivor Beastie?
Yeah, Scott definitely wants to be, and I imagine was digging with that Teysa looking for an erode. You want to be taking that Kona off the board, if at all possible, in this situation.
So what would you prefer to do in that situation, Molly? If that Teysa was in hand, we had 3 cards in hand. You can play Teysa, or with 4 mana, you could go to level 3 of Cool But Rude and take the classic Magic the Gathering sorcery gamble. Search your library for a card, which can be a road, put it in your hand, and then maybe immediately discard it and look like a fool, or maybe have the answer you need.
I hate a gamble.
Okay, all right.
I'm sorry. I'm a very much a greed is good player. I will choose not to mulligan when I probably should, but this gamble feels dicey. And depending on where Scott Aitchison is in terms of what the other cards in his hand, we knew that it was a Teysa and an Iron Shield Elf as at least 2 of the 4 that he would have had at the start of this turn. Clearly none of them are on a road, or the Kona we wouldn't be sitting here debating what else would be there. The Kona would be dead and Scott would have swung.
Actually, as you say that, there might be a reason. We are holding up 1 white mana still, which could just be the leftover from Teysa. But
no, I think that was strategically left up so that if he drew an erode, we would find it.
If you have drawn an erode, you don't have to play it now, because Kona doesn't trigger on Hanbin's turn.
Correct.
Kona triggers at the beginning of the second main phase, where there are a lot of windows where you gain priority as Scott Aitchison, and because it's legendary, he does fire it off right now, so you're dodging potentially Lost in the Maze, right, while Hanbin's tapped out.
You don't want to be letting Hanbin untap.
Right.
You don't know what kind of permission suite Hanbin's brought in from the sideboard.
You leave yourself vulnerable here, I guess, to a second copy of Kona, which I think is kind of what Hanbin implies by strongly playing out the first copy. It kind of says, I don't care about this Kona, I've got another, but you would feel foolish if you waited on your road and got it countered by Lost in the Maze.
Yeah. I mean, you can respond to the Lost in the Maze, right, with your road, but it could be any other kind of element of the permission suite that might have come in, but I don't even think that Hanbin really wanted to be doing that.
No. Oh, that's first mover advantage,
It's got a spider
right?
sense.
If you attack with the Kona or otherwise find a way to tap it, your opponent has to move with their removal first. You don't have to fire off the Lost in the Maze if they don't make you.
Okay. Yeah, so Hanbin could have had an Omni Changeling or a Spider Sense to...
Omni Changeling, wow.
Yeah, Omni Changeling being a 5 cost, but with Convoke. That allows you to copy one of your creatures. So not only would you tap the Kona to create the Changeling, but the Changeling would then be the Kona.
Well, we could have just gotten the Omni Changeling now. Northwind Avatar has hit the battlefield for Hanbin. So 1 card from the sideboard now in the main board in the hand, and that's a fist bump because Scott Aitchison presents a second hasty attacker, and combined with the Cool But Rude, that is enough damage. Hanbin was already on 7 life. You pitch your hand, you swing with 2 creatures. There's only 1 blocker, and Hanbin is tapped out. Just like that, we are done with our second quarterfinal, Molly.
Wow, what an incredible match. Look, I'm so glad that we finally got really great coverage of this deck today, and what a game to see it in. It's unfortunate we never got to see the Omniscience deck really do its thing, but that was the goal of the Mardu discard deck. It was, I want to do my thing faster than you can do your thing, and I want to make sure that I'm going to get over the line, and you're just dead. Your combo doesn't matter if you're not alive to go off, right?
Yeah. I feel like all weekend that's been the story. We've seen your prowess versus landfall or versus Jeskai Revelation, or in this case Mardu versus Omniscience. And it's one player has this thing where if they reach it, the game is almost out of reach. The other player has to know when is the time. You have to commit all your resources because you don't get another turn, and they just send it across the table. That time for Scott Aitchison, it was enough to make it through to the semi-finals.
Yeah, an incredible example of how powerful that Mardu discard deck can be. And we're going to get to see it again when we come back shortly with our semi-finals. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Molly Rowe. I'm here with Tom Anderson. You have been watching the ANZ Super Series Regional Championship here in beautiful Adelaide, Australia.
I'm here with April Prime, Magic the Gathering artist. You might know her work, Lord Windgrace, the cat card, of course, and another well-known card.
Yes, Kakawa Wind's Fury. It is the portrait version from the Secret Ledger.
Beautiful. Now you're here all weekend selling artist proofs, writing, making custom tokens as well.
This one's currently in progress. We're doing a little 1/1 Black Vampire, and I'm doing him as a Bloomburrow bat.
We love that so much, so creative. How many tokens have you done this weekend?
I think total so far 23, and yeah, a few more yet to do, so.
Brilliant, you have been so hard at work. I don't think you'll probably get to play much this weekend, will you?
No, not at all. I have a Warhammer Chaos deck that I love. My friend gave it to me, and I love it dearly, but I don't think I've actually played the game in maybe 2 or 3 years. I just don't have time anymore. I'm too busy doing the art.
Curse of success, absolutely. Well, I wish you the best of luck this afternoon and many more tokens tomorrow.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Kellogg's Loops at Command Fest Adelaide. Hugh, tell us a little bit about what you've got today.
So I've got an assortment of things. We have some prints, we've got playmats and some pins and a bunch of stickers that we're giving away to anyone who wants to come by and say hi.
Beautiful. Honestly, this is such a stunning spread. What has been your best seller for today?
Definitely the Dan playmats. Surprisingly, I didn't bring enough, so we're on our last one now. But we'll survive.
Exclusive, just like the secret lair.
Pretty much, yeah. Honestly.
Honestly, it is so stunning. You've also got your beautiful printed out wrapping as well. You're going to be here all weekend, right?
Yes, yeah. So flew in from Melbourne yesterday, first time Adelaide, and here until tomorrow, then flying back straight away.
Brilliant. That sounds really busy, and you're going to be even busier this year because you'll be at future events, right? Would you like to tell us about those?
So I'll be going to the Perth event next, which I think is in July, and then the Brisbane event in August. Yes, and then I think Manfest later in the year as well.
Oh, yeah. Stacked lineup. Thank you so much. Honestly, best of luck. I don't think you'll need it for your sales this weekend, but if you're at Command Fest, make sure you come and grab some beautiful art.
Hello everyone and welcome back to coverage of the ANZ Super Series from Adelaide. My name's Riley Knight, joining you for the first time today, and Thomas Anderson joining me. Unfortunately, the lower third there was the wrong way around.
Oh,
you
okay.
thefted my identity already, and we're barely seconds into the broadcast.
Yes,
Thomas.
I've stolen your seat figuratively, but I could never take it from, well, literally never figuratively. But I'm glad you could join us, Riley, because, man, that was a hurried end to our quarterfinals. Scott Aitchison wasting no time dispatching Hanbin Zhou, and unfortunately that means that Team Omniscience no longer represented in the top 8. We'll have to wait for another shot at the Pro Tour, which of course he and all our other players today have already earned. But there are higher stakes yet to be won. A Worlds invite on the line as well, some handy prize money.
Yes, indeed. Whoever triumphs today in our top 8 will be going to represent the Australia-New Zealand region at the World Championship, and we're very excited to find out who it is. We're going to jump into our first semi-final now and get underway with, I was going to say those lower thirds were fixed up before we did. There we go. A skerrick of professionalism for you all to enjoy around the world. Thanks for joining us. It's great to have your company here in the City of Churches. It's been a great weekend so far. And as we move into the feature match area now, Dylan Kakawa playing this Teamer Prowess build against Samuel Beard with a very intriguing Selesnya Uroboroid list. It's playing Bright Glass Gearhulk and a number of other cards that haven't seen a huge amount of play, but perhaps should. They're very good.
Yeah, it just shows the depth of not the blue-red color combination. I think has seen a fair airing out this weekend and other weekends, but other colors are still yet underexplored. I think the last time I saw a deck like this, or the most prominent time for a deck like this, was Matt Nass at the Pro Tour. And the rationale there, at least as players explained it, was you kind of took the green-white rhythm deck that a lot of people were playing, at least at that time, and you kind of flipped the main board and the sideboard to improve your matchups. Because you'll see the sideboard has a pretty transformative kind of plan there.
Yes, it does. Yes, I'm sure we'll talk about that as we get into the other games. But I was hunting up and down through Samuel Beard's list for the Nature's Rhythm that you often see, and 4 copies in the board along with the Creative Behemoth. But we'll come back to that. Right now, we open things up with a Gene Pollinator for Samuel. Dylan with a one drop of his own Elusive Otter, and this is why we're calling it Teamer, of course. This Otter gives you extra game against the green-based decks in the format. Not the best in the mirror, of course, but does give you a bit of another dimension, another axis on which to fight when you're playing against other green-based Selesnya decks, whether it's Landfall or indeed Urborg.
Yeah, as the name suggests, the elusive otter, difficult to get your little hands on, or whatever Gene Pollinator has, some sort of strange robot insect. And now it's nothing but ash, Riley, as Burst Lightning, the card of the weekend, no doubt, comes crackling out of the hand of Dylan Kakawa. And this is an intimidating start, as we've seen. It seems like I've said that 1,000 times already this weekend.
Well, it was a great start here for any red-blue-based player, leveraging early threats, using removal to make sure the board is nice and clear. But here is one of the best cards in Standard. A Badger Mole Cub down on turn number 2 for Samuel Beard. That's exactly where he wants to be.
Yeah, it's a kind of exchanging of haymakers here between Standard heavyweights. It goes from, oh, well, that was a setback of that Burst Lightning to you feel lucky that you had one, because if you did not, the amount of speed that this Ouroboros list, or really any Badger Mole Cub deck, can pick up if they're allowed to resolve a turn 1 Mana Dork, which is effectively what that bug is, into the very powerful Badger Mole Cub. It's intense.
All right, sleight of hand now.
Yes.
Let's see a horse go to the bottom of the library. I think was it a land? Yes, Verge picked up by Dylan there from the sleight of hand. So lands continue, and now a Boomerang Basics on the Storm Chaser's Talent. Classic line, of course. We've seen this time and time again. Oh, and a Burst Lightning off the top. How about that one?
Yeah, it's almost like this deck is full of all of the most powerful 1-mana cards you can play in Standard, and Dylan has been taking advantage of that all weekend, not looking to stop anytime soon, as a second powerful and important piece of the Ouroboros deck hits the bin, and that is, I guess, by taking out the rhythms from the main deck, you've made yourself a little less vulnerable to this, but it's still a weakness of really every green deck. If you can't get a wide board of creatures going, the power of things like Ouroboros drops dramatically. And
the second Burst Lightning there, that's devastating here for Samuel, having to deal with that. Losing not just the Gene Pollinator on turn 1, you can cop that, you can soak that up, but the Badger Mole Cup on turn 2, an empty board effectively for him. Whereas Dylan firing on all cylinders here. Double Otter, we've got another Storm Chaser Talent in hand, in addition to a Slick Shot Show-Off and an Opt with an untapped land next turn. Dylan's party time for him.
Yeah.
For them, sorry, excuse me.
As soon as you see a show-off, you immediately start counting lethal damage, just assuming. You almost brazenly assume you have it represented, but I mean, all it would take is that Opt to draw any other action spell for Dylan Kakawa, and we could easily deal 9 or rather now 8 damages. Poor Samuel Beard on top of everything else that's gone wrong this game. All the mana is coming out of Starting Town, so those are also hastening his demise.
Yeah, true. Very good point. Yes, they're ticking away at the life total as well. So Samuel down to just 8 now.
Yeah, I mean, it's already, you say you have, at least you can tell yourself you've earned a Pro Tour spot, and it's been a great tournament for you by any standard so far, but you didn't come here to lose in the semi-finals, and unfortunately things have really taken a poor turn here. The cards you're deploying, these 1-mana generating bugs, what are they? The Gene
Pollinators.
Gene Pollinators. How could I possibly forget?
Well, every single time I go to say this card's name, I have to not say Gene Parmesan from Arrested Development. That's what I always think of when I look at this card.
As though I needed any more trouble remembering its actual name,
Now you're going to have a hard time. Now you're going to be
Riley.
calling it Gene Parmesan.
Exactly. Well, this nasty little bug, unfortunately for Samuel, is only a 1/2. I mean, that's decent stats for 1 mana, but it's nothing compared to these otters, and particularly the elusive otter, which it cannot block basically ever. And it can't block this flyer either. So Sam, you can see those arms crossed. It's a fully defensive posture. You feel threatened right now. Dylan assembling a lethal force.
This is a big attack. The other option here was to play the Opt and hope for another untapped land so you could play the Storm Chaser Talent again. But Dylan choosing not to be quite so greedy. We're going to see one Gene Parmesan jump in the way of that Otter token. But this is still a fair bit of damage coming through. That's, I think, 5.
Yeah, we've seen this multiple times from Dylan. Even though I'm always ready to leap to an explosive combo kill, you know, as a commentator, I thirst for action. Dylan is very patient, does not expend the resources before they're needed, and very happy to just ride a 2-turn clock to victory if need be.
Oh dear. And Starting Town here now. Okay, no, this is all right.
Okay. Oh, this is...
Surak, all right. No.
Sage of the Skies.
Sage of the Skies. Okay, well, this one's got lifelink.
Yeah, I mean, of all the cards that might save you, I'm still not confident it will. Dylan has some mana to say about that. But yeah, as you say, a flyer and a lifelinker. This is the card in many decks against Prowess that has seen win rates improve against what was formerly an unbeatable boogeyman of Standard.
Flow State puts a sleight of hand in Dylan's hand. I didn't get the other card.
There's an Opt and a land and something else that's hiding sneakily at the back. It's a talent.
It's a Storm Chaser Talent, yes, indeed. So this is a hand this is an incredible hand here.
Okay,
An incredible hand.
Still yet to be decided whether Sam dies right here, but Dylan has many shots at this.
Another sleight of hand here.
Digging.
Prowess up to 2. The slick shot show off now. 5 power.
Okay. Sleight of land right there for Dylan as we reveal 2 more of them off the top. The deck's
good.
playing as few of those as it can reasonably get away with, but still not quite few enough to avoid that. But this is a good spot to be flooded, quote unquote, as Dylan simply indicates an attack and Sam says, I've had about enough of this.
Yep. In comes the elusive Otter, and that is that for game number 1. Samuel Beard going down in no uncertain terms there. We just saw his game plan picked apart expertly by the Izzet or the team of player there. Double burst lightning against the 2 opening plays. No real traction with the Badger Mole Cup. Difficult to be on the draw when your opponent has such an excellent mix of threats plus disruption. But that's the name of the game, and that's how Izzet wins.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you have to just acknowledge the context, dealing with every advantage there on the play. And I think in this matchup, quite favoured. We saw them similarly dismantle a green-white opponent in the quarterfinals. So they could just kind of march over a road of green-white players all the way to the World Championships here, if Samuel lets them. But there are sideboards to have something to say about that.
And let's have a look at those sideboards right now as we get ready for game number 2. Samuel Beard with this Selesnya Ouroboros list. And we talked before about this sort of semi-transformational approach that can be taken in the sideboard. 4 copies of Nature's Rhythm and the Hoof in the board. But is that the direction we want to take here? We're looking to maybe be a little more interactive.
Yeah, it's difficult to say, right? It's an interesting kind of transformational sideboard because Nature's Rhythm depends on you being able to generate a lot of mana, which in this deck typically means having a lot of creatures live in the early game. And that's also kind of what makes Ouroboros powerful. But I do like the Rhythm plan here just because it provides such a fast end to the game. And I like trying to race Teamer more than I like trying to survive Teamer.
Right, you want to be proactive here rather than trying to be reactive.
Exactly.
A lot of decks will slow their game plan down, bring in extra interaction, try to find ways to be disruptive. But no, you want to be more proactive here, you think?
Perhaps so. I mean, the Sage of the Skies, I don't think this is in every list. Perhaps with additional life linkers, you could bring in these roads and this focus fire. You might do that anyway. It might be a little bit of a mix. Try and take out less effective cards and bring in interaction that works. Like, I could see myself losing the Keen-Eyed Curators here. They don't have reach. It's rare that they're able to block. I mean, they might get in the way of an Otter if it isn't pumped enough. But generally, I'm trying to find a way to stop Slickshot Shelf killing me because that usually buys you a turn. And then hopefully you can go over the top of those little Otter tokens.
I'm just looking at the Sage of the Skies in conjunction with the Ouroboros, and that just seems like an absolutely unbeatable combo there. If you can get 2 copies of Sage of the Skies out and then follow it up with an Ouroboros, that's just so much power, and all of it life-linking as well. We can move on now, though, and have a look at the Teamer list and what it's got in the sideboard. A pretty varied sideboard, lots of one-ofs in this list. Flash freeze, you'd think, an automatic inclusion, of course. Bring that one in.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at cards like Spell Pierce. If you do think your opponent is going to bring in the Nature's Rhythm package here, this is an open decklist event, of course.
Yes.
It feels weird to bring a Spell Pierce in against a very creature-heavy deck, but either they're bringing in the Nature's Rhythms or they're bringing in the Erodes and the Focus Fires. So in that situation, do you want to be able to interact on the stack?
Yeah, I suppose you have to look at what your total interaction mix is, but it is a very cheap spell. Mana efficiency is the name of the game if both players are racing, and I think you're right. I don't think I'm losing if my opponent only plays creature cards, so I would not be shocked to see the Spell Pierce, even as you said, against a creature-heavy green deck. That said, there are other options besides the sort of free bingo space of Flash Freeze. The Bounce spell is another option if you're concerned. There's an Into the Floodmaw that was absolutely instrumental in the quarterfinals. Now, there's no Sheltered by Ghost, which was the key target for it in those quarters, but it can reset a card like Badger Mole Cub and deny your opponent mana they thought they had, and that kind of missed step effect where they had a turn in mind and then you kind of undo their ability to take that turn can be all you need to seize a victory with a deck as explosive as this.
There's an interesting tension at play here because it really does depend. This is the thing when you have a transformative sideboard. Whether you go the Nature's Rhythm, whether you bring in Erodes and Focus Fires or something, I don't know exactly what the plan that Samuel Beard has.
Yeah.
But it's up to Dylan to sort of figure out what level we're on here. Because a card like Secret Identity, for instance, a card like Spell Pierce, they become very... they become worth either a lot more or a lot less, depending on how your opponent has configured themselves post-board.
Yeah, you have all these niche one-ofs that are very situational, and you have to make the right calls. I think if I have to call it, I'll bank on the Secret Identity, maybe leave out the Spell Pierce, bring in something like a Broadside Barrage that can hit the big-ticket items in the deck, like a Gearhulk that might otherwise slow me down in combat, or Into the Floodmaw, which unconditionally removes everything. We've seen Slag Storm be massive against these go-wide decks, no matter what configuration of the sideboard they're using. They're going to want their little creatures to survive. Meanwhile, Samuel Beard, I think that the Nature's Rhythm part of the deck is stronger against Prowess. I think that the reason you have the Ouroboros half in to start is to survive against other green-white decks or to overcome them. And we're going to see the faster plan where hopefully you put the hoof on the battlefield, legendary game-ending threat, and get it done here in Game 2.
All right, well, let's find out. We can head into our second game here. Dylan Kakawa picking up a win in the first game, so we'll see if they can capitalise on the momentum and clean things up in our semi-final. Let's head down to our feature match area now and get underway with game number 2 here of the first semi-final. Again, Dylan Kakawa leading the charge here in Adelaide. It's good to have your company here at the ANZ Super Series final, coming to you from the City of Churches. Friday night, joined by Tom Anderson in the booth. And we're going to get stuck in here. Looks like Samuel Beard will be on the play, as you would imagine, after having picked up the loss in game number 1. And he'll be looking for a strong start, curving out.
I mean, you saw what Dylan was able to do with the advantage of being on the play in Game 1. Just absolutely fired on all cylinders from front to end and made that a fast Game 1. Sam's deck is capable of similar momentum, and you'd have to hope that you can fire back in kind. But this is a long time to look at a hand if it was just a snap, keep, great 7. Never mind.
All right, here we go.
And that's about as good a start as you can hope.
Perfect start here. Llanowar Elves, player's old as term itself. But, oh my goodness. Bolt the Bird has the Burst Lightning, of course.
It's an embarrassment of riches, Riley. I was about to say, well, Dylan has the interaction here, but maybe not the threats. But instead, that first draw for turn, it peeled an Otter, I believe. So set up to basically run it how we did in Game 1. Sam, not phased, replaces that elf with an identical look-alike.
Not quite as good on turn 2, however.
No.
Especially on the face of another Burst Lightning. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness.
I'd hope maybe for Sam's sake that second mana represented a protective spell, but actually this is the only green-white player not to be running something like... you know, Royal Position or Snakeskin Veil, exactly. So that's just a dead elf, and okay, we at least fire back something that Dylan can't bolt.
Yep, we've got a Seam Rip here. Or a Shawm Rip, as they say in Ireland. And now...
Do they?
An Opt here, as Dylan has to find some business.
Right.
Boomerang Basics, Wild Ride, these aren't the cards you're looking for. You need something that's going to play to the board here.
It's hard to have a bad hand in a deck full of 1-mana universal interactive spells, but this is the hands we've seen Prowess players kind of stumble and lose on, is the ones that are all Opt and Boomerang Basics.
Oh, mismatched Ops as well here for Dylan.
Hideous. What are you doing?
We don't like to see that.
Well, Dylan, we finally found their weakness, seemingly an implacable juggernaut in every other regard of Magic, but these Opt-Art choices I cannot support.
Questionable.
Yeah.
Questionable.
Have to clean that up before the Pro Tour, Dylan.
Yes, indeed. Now, on Samuel's side, playing a very close hand. Dylan being very helpful, giving us a good view of what's in the hand there, but Samuel, cards a little close to the chest.
Yeah, Dylan kind of holding a lot of potential, not a lot of action right now, but as soon as you see another threat, Wild Ride and company in hand there to make it worth a lot of damage, Sam is going to make the most of the time available there. Look at that, the Seam Rip onto nothing, but that actually ends up representing a second copy of Sage of the Skies for 1 white. Riley, I'm all right with that in this position.
Yes, I think the importance of having the extra 2/3 on the battlefield here, particularly with lifelink, as we talked about, can do a lot of work against what these Isidore team of decks are trying to do.
And Dylan, I mean, was very confident in firing off those Burst Lightnings earlier on, and no doubt the right decision. You know, taking out the Mana Dork is pretty much unassailable strategically, but now you have to present yet more interaction. There is a Seer in hand, it seems like, and another Burst Lightning, so never mind. Dylan has drawn nothing but removal this game, it seems.
Is it a flow state as well? There is a flow state, but not for full value. Okay, because I was going to say, fire that one off for sure, but no, Seer. Seer is going to remove the one of the Sages here.
Yeah, I guess Dylan working their way into a position where maybe they can... But you only have Wild Ride, I think, in hand as a sorcery, which is right now not only unappetizing, but...
Another flow state.
Okay, well, at some point you can
my goodness, a third mismatched Opt.
I guess at some point you commit to the bit.
How many different Opt arts are there?
Oh,
are there heaps?
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot.
There are heaps. There's the Pirate one. There's Teferi. There's the Lord of the Rings one. There's this Mystical Archives.
Been around since Apocalypse, right?
Japanese
plenty of time.
Oh, and there's the True Boomer one. Exactly.
Yeah,
going back all the way to the late 20th century.
Deep cuts. I wonder. I don't actually know if they played Opt back then, but it's really funny. Ever since it got reprinted in the Pirate one, right? So it's Ixalan. It's been a staple. So I'm sure that the greybeards of the 90s and early 2000s knew what they were cooking with.
Although they'll be heading to bed soon. It is 2:30 local time here, so they'll be enjoying a Sunday Bain Marie dinner before
Oh, don't worry. I'm only a small ways behind you as a early 2000s Magic joiner. And meanwhile, these players, I mean, Sam is hoping to join the ranks of those who have represented Australia at the World Championships, but right now seems to be on the ropes. Can't find another threat, and those Sages that look so strong didn't amount to much, Riley.
No. And there's all business off the top here for Dylan. I saw 2 copies of Slickshot Show Off there. This is off a fully powered up flow state now that Boomerang Basics is in the bin. So this is looking very good here for is it player or team of player, I should say?
Yeah, I mean, Flow State, this is such a card. It hasn't really flown under the radar at all, but I feel like this weekend it's been quietly working away in the background of these Izzet lists already so strong. They maybe didn't need this powerful of a card draw spell. Maybe the best 2-mana one ever printed.
The best 2-mana card draw spell ever printed.
I mean, I've heard someone say that.
You've heard? I heard someone say that as well.
Right.
I couldn't quite believe it.
I've heard a lot of people registering it in Legacy who seem to have a similar intent. At the very least, it's format disrupting. I mean, it's in competition with stuff like the card from the previous Strixhaven set, Expressive Iteration, that one of my other co-casters was comparing it to. But Dylan, firing that off, finding the gas needed, has not yet put a threat onto the battlefield. But as you said, that Slickshot Show Off, it can get things done in a real hurry here. So,
all right, the Raccoon
it stayed
comes down.
Okay, 3/3 on the board. Able to eat the graveyard, so future flow states in jeopardy.
Well, it was removed just now by the Boomerang. So it was bounced by the Boomerang Basics and ate those 2 Burst Lightnings.
Yeah.
So this is its little encore appearance here.
Chewing away at those graveyards as any good trash-eating mammal would. And Dylan...
Oh, I just got that.
Oh,
I didn't realize. It's a raccoon and it eats stuff out of the bin.
They do this sometimes. It's like a...
That's so clever. I'm not being sarcastic. I didn't realize that until just now.
Have you also noticed, like Riley, that Roast is a sorcery speed card, but Sear is an instant speed way of cooking a creature?
I didn't think about that.
Works a lot faster.
Goes very because you sear something a lot faster.
Someone at Wizards thinks a lot about this stuff.
No, it knows exactly what's up. Wow, the raccooning eating out of the bin. That's really smart.
And as we talk about it, so does the little monster demonstrate for you at home, gobbling up the trash. Suddenly, Dylan, not a lot left in the graveyard and definitely no sorcery, so sorry to that flow state in hand. Back to being an Anticipate, no longer more or less Ancestral Recall, and I'm sure Dylan's crying crocodile tears over that. Still a lot of other action, though, for them. That Wild Ride is just ominous in the hand there.
Yeah, been sitting on this, I think it was in the opener, or at least it was drawn very early on. So we'll see exactly what kind of value Dylan can get from it eventually. But for now, Badgermole Cub coming down.
And Sam's kind of, due to the relative lack of pressure from Dylan, who, again, being patient more than without answers, but it's given Sam a window to find more creatures, redeploy the board, and finally kind of have some presence in this game. Dylan down to 14 life.
Still, you just never feel like you can count these Izzet or Teamer decks out.
No.
They do have such explosive potential, particularly. I mean, let's not forget that Slickshot Show Off in the plot zone.
I hope Sam doesn't, because surely not, right? There are a few cards which have more of a presence in the mind than a plotted show off. You sort of count the number of cards in your opponent's hand. You can reasonably assume most of those will trigger its pseudo prowess ability, and you know suddenly no amount of life points seems like enough.
All right, both players here.
Dylan,
deep in thought.
Yeah, this is a real mastermind stance if I've ever seen it. Sam's on 21. Surely that is enough to live at least another turn.
Well, if there's a way, here we go. Okay, now.
Okay, Slight, Flow State, Wild Ride, Burst Lightning, all the different tools you could want.
Yes, just a smattering of everything, really. Card draw, disruption, pump spells. Okay, we're going to see the Slickshot Show Off join the fray.
That's not nothing to commit that to the board. We've seen it, other players come run it out early and then it eats removal. So Dylan looking for a big turn here. Slight, maybe to find another land.
Sleight of hand, prowess count at 1. Okay, I think is that a null?
Yeah. It's such
that for those Shawn Rips?
That and Earthbender's Ascension, I believe. I mean, it does everything, right? It seems like such a narrow sideboard card, but I think there's a reason it's actually seen really heavy play. There's almost no deck you don't bring it in against sometimes. Everyone's got some sneaky little enchantment somewhere, cool but rude. Earthbender's Ascension. Obviously, you can counter artifacts, so against Izzet Lessons, it kind of dismisses their most powerful threats. And it's just 1 blue, Riley. I'm getting married to a null, I think, soon enough.
Okay.
Well,
you want to tell us more about that?
Okay, well, yeah, you're right. It was a longbow to draw. You know, you annul a marriage. It's sort of the only real common usage of that that verb.
That word, right? Okay.
I don't know why they chose it to dismiss artifacts and enchantments, although wedding ring's an artifact in Magic. So
there you go. That's they planned it a
They
long
saw
time.
that
They're like,
way.
we're gonna make wedding ring an artifact. We'll make a null.
if I'm not wrong, a null is another card that goes pretty far back. So they had some real future sight on that one.
Yeah, they really did.
Okay,
They had
well,
one ready.
Dylan Kakawa not privy to our nattering, but has now made a decision after the information from that sleight, and it's a flow state. So Sam,
Flow state for full value after that sleight of hand hits.
yeah, I mean Sam has mana to react, right? You can activate the raccoon at instant speed. It can dart back to the trash bin while that flow state is yet to resolve.
For a second helping of that delicious garbage.
Give me that sleight of hand.
First printing of Annul goes all the way back to 1998 with Urza's Saga.
I did not know. Oh, we saw the art for that. Yes, that hit the graveyard. That was a real what art is that moment.
Yeah.
Yes, Urza's Saga. What a set. Among the Magic sets of all time. Dylan, I mean, we've been waiting patiently to see what they do. They have found another land, so this turn will continue. And so those cantrips have added up more damage to the board. They haven't just been stalling.
We're going to see an impractical joke here.
Wow, it all pays off. Neither of those cards, the land to play it nor the spell itself, were in hand at the start, and Dylan draws into the answer for the raccoon. The 3 toughness creature goes down before it can finish its trash feast and grow to full size. Sad ending for the raccoon, and maybe soon for Sam.
Yeah, this is a big attack.
Yeah.
Don't forget, of course, the Slickshot Shelf getting +2/+0, so it's got, what,
How could we?
7 power?
Yeah. Disgusting. And that's not even really as efficient a turn as you could have had. Next turn is going to be way worse if Sam can't do something about it now or on his turn. It still has the mana available, has been waiting patiently all this time, might just choose to take this hit if it's non-lethal.
We may see a block here with the planes. Yeah, okay, just jumping the planes, jumping in the way of that otter there, so it will return to the land zone.
Yeah, given the threat mix Dylan has chosen, those otter tokens are more or less the only threat you can ever block, so I don't mind the decision to save some damage where you can.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, okay.
A Nurturing Pixie.
Right.
Oh, when returning a seam rep.
Yeah, the
all right.
Reseaming here, and that is great. So the seam rep, normally that's a target reselection. We go from nothing to Slickshot Shelf, which is a massive upgrade.
Yeah, normally you're giving away something. You're having to you're upgrading whatever you're targeting with that. Oh, and the Badger Mole Cub gets in as well. Why not?
Sam far from giving up here, but unfortunately the amount of damage that Sam is dealing back compared to the sort of firepower that Dylan can wield, it makes you root for Sam as the underdog, I think. Dylan with double Burst Lightning now in hand and Wild Ride. That is a lot of damage. Mono red style right here.
No, I think that's a Slag Storm.
Oh, is it?
Which is still...
Oh, it is.
Still damage.
My apologies.
Still goes upstairs. 3 damage to both players.
At least it's a bit more expensive. Yeah, each player or all the creatures, which is an interesting... It's such a cool board wipe for this deck specifically to have, that it can still turn into Lightning Bolt when you need it.
Of course, if you can grow your prowess creatures outside of the 3 damage...
Or we saw in the quarterfinals, actually, Dylan was able to sequence around with those signature boomerang basics. As if that card needed to be any more irritating for the opponent, you simply return your threat to hand and then blow up the whole board and then redeploy it.
Well, plays the Slag Storm here and does destroy his own Otter token, or their own Otter token with that, excuse me.
Sorry, Mr. Otter.
And Llanowar Elves, not the most impressive play on turn 1 million.
I think that is the weakness encapsulated of this deck. It's a strong deck in many regards, but sometimes you do top deck Llanowar Elves on turn 1 million.
That's the risk of playing a card like Llanowar Elves, of course. Oh, 3 lands. Yes,
okay,
please.
So neither player really drawing straight gas here in our semi.
Tripping up on their own feet in both situations.
Can't blame Dylan for putting lands in the deck, but, you know, unfortunately here we're going to see a bit more of a sedate pace for a turn or two.
We've got a Burst Lightning. I think Dylan weighing up casting it against the Llanowar Elves just to keep the board clear.
I mean, surely you can at least sit on it for instant speed.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, that's a real vendetta.
Maybe it's just the the heuristic. It's like, oh, there's a Llanowar Elf on the battlefield, and I have a 1-mana red removal spell.
Yeah, you are so right. Actually, it was in response to the active. At least you made your opponent do the thing they were going to do anyway, and then they had nothing else to spend their mana on. So
you got me.
We can put it down to Magic players sort of practicing correct habits, I guess. You wait and make them do it, and then they do it, and then you do the thing. We go through the steps of this dance, both players thinking, no doubt, of the next draw and what potential outs they may have. For Sam, we're yet to see those big-ticket spells. I don't think we even know what configuration of the sideboard he went with, Riley.
No, we actually don't. Yeah, we haven't seen the... oh, my God. Talk about... Mate, if there was a
My
raccoon on the
lord.
battlefield, it would be absolutely gorging itself on
I was
the
about to say.
garbage that Dylan is drawing here. That's 6 lands in 7 cards.
Yeah, this has suddenly turned into a real kind of slap fight here between two decks that are normally the heavyweights of Standard. Dylan finally deploying, as you said, one of the most powerful cards in Standard, but again...
Not that great on this
On
turn.
turn 1,000,000, even the mighty Badgermore card, kind of humble. At least it is 2 bodies for the Abandoned Air Temple, so multiplying the effectiveness of that utility land can give them all permanent +1/+1, a bit of Gavaney Township for you if you're an old head. And,
Oh boy, what a
and if
card.
you're not, I'm apologising for this entire broadcast.
Let's have a look at Storm Chaser's talent here.
You're right, yes.
Because
Many
now
modes.
it's... Well, the thing is, we don't often look at the 3rd level.
My God, it has a 3rd one?
It's got a 3rd level, which we don't see. I mean, it's sort of you're in dire straits if you're activating the 2nd level. It means you've really got nothing going on. But here, Dylan with 10,000 lands in hand, and on the battlefield, all of a sudden, this Storm Chaser talent, the level 3 looked pretty juicy.
I'm afraid I might come off here as almost perverse, Riley, but this is
dear.
what I live for in Magic the Gathering, right? You get this, as you said, you really are kind of reaching to even be activating level 2 of this, but level 3 is a real, you get to pick up the little hammer and break the glass. Haven't you always wanted to kind of do that when you see that option? What if it was right this one time to pay 6 mana and turn this into suddenly a mythic rare level value engine?
Well,
Never mind.
No, it's not going to happen. Okay.
Not
well,
today either. Leave the hammer in the box.
Thanks very much, Dylan, for making us look like a pair of idiots.
I forgive us for getting excited. It's only our job.
Juicing that up, trying to give everyone around the world the big sell on the level 3, and then no, I'm just going to pick it up.
I believe we have
All
seen
right.
it at least once on commentary this weekend. That's got to be enough for you at home.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I wasn't on coverage, but I heard someone else mention. I've heard someone say, Riley.
I missed it as well.
That,
so it must have been Molly and Matt.
Yeah, lucky.
Oh, lucky them. All right, well, instead we're just going to see a boring old Storm Chaser talent level 1 here, make a 1/1 otter.
But Dylan, I think, has finally, over the course of this long game, perhaps exhausted their supply of removal for the moment, and that means that Sam may begin to turn on his own value engine in the form of Abandoned Air Temple. Dylan's only on 10 life. This game's been proceeding so slowly, we haven't really referenced that as a factor, but if you can start cracking in for 5 next turn, more the turn after, even if you don't draw or a Boroid Nature's Rhythm, these sorts of powerful cards, you could have a route to victory. Never mind. Impractical Joke, again, off the top, Dylan peels the necessary spell and pranks that Badger Mole to a permanent end.
It just came back from the Storm
Oh,
Chaser
sorry,
talent.
picked it up. Sorry, my apologies. The deck is way too consistent for that.
Yeah, peeled the correct card out of the graveyard.
I was about to embarrass myself by double-checking there was no second copy of Impractical Joke, but you can have as many copies as you want as long as you keep resetting this Storm Chaser's talent. What a mighty card.
All right, well, Gene Parmesan joins the fray once again. This is what happens. You fill your deck with cards that are great on turn 1 and they're terrible on turn 1,000,000. So.
Un-Australian of me to turn my nose up at a Parmesan, Riley, but I feel as though Sam would surely... He's been patient enough to earn a slightly more exciting draw than this.
Yeah, this is not going well.
Oh, no, there it is!
Beard. Oh, the mythical level 3 activation.
It is real, and Dylan immediately proves it by triggering that ability of level 3. Let's go back to Storm Chaser's talent just to review exactly how that works. We already see its ability to create multiple otters in concurrence with bounce spells like Boomerang Basics, but now you don't even need to return to hand. You can just jam any of the other spells in the deck, and you will be pumping out those otters. Sam really has to draw something powerful now in a hurry.
So I guess Dylan was planning out those turns thinking, right, I've got the Boomerang Basics in hand. I want to get value from that. I can then bring back another spell from the graveyard. And then, mate, I got plenty of time. I'll get to the level 3 eventually. And that's exactly what has happened here. And an uncontested Storm Chaser talent. This game is not going to go on for very long if this card is not dealt with.
Yeah, it almost never happens, but almost never isn't never. And it's not for a lack of power. It's just really expensive, and the deck usually has other things to do. But...
Yes.
If Sam doesn't have another one of your what did you call them, the Shawm Rip?
Shawm Rip.
If you can't rip one of those off the top, things might be over.
Yeah, all right,
I don't even know if there are actually, unless we sideboarded them in, those might be the only 2 copies as well.
Okay, Wild Ride. It's been sitting in Dylan's hand since almost the beginning of this game. It might have been in the opener.
Is this the double?
Finally, we're getting in.
How many Wild Rides? Because this can be, I mean, Dylan has a lot of mana, maybe not this much. But Harmonize, we get another otter off the cast of Wild Ride. You could discount by 1 there. Even 1 Wild Ride represents 5 damage on this board. It's pretty good.
So blocks, and then the Abandoned Air Temple activation as well.
So a car crash here between tokens and animated lands. unusual combatants duking it out deep into game 2, Riley. It's been a real marathon here. Dylan looking to...
Still got the Burst Lightning in hand as well. Oh, my goodness me.
Yeah,
oh
I mean, that's the real signature of this list in the end, right? It's almost impossible to run out of cards, whereas Sam has been top decking for years at this point.
Yeah, thousands of years.
Millennia. He is the archaic of Strixhaven himself, just sitting there, moss growing over him.
Yeah.
And finally... Okay, I was going to say, if Sam's picking up his cards, that's a disaster, but just moving those creatures to the graveyard as unfortunately those otters ran them over, rode them down, and Sam... Oh, no.
Draw, go. Not great. And you can see a rueful smile here on Sam's face. This might be it here. Dylan doing an extremely good job of closing this out as we see Wild Ride cast from the bin. Another otter, thanks to the Storm Chaser's talent, a prowess trigger as well. Let's not forget about that. In they come. What has Sam drawn? It might just be a land here.
If it's not removal, this could be... I mean, not quite curtains, but with multiple otters on the battlefield next turn, it's hard to see how another one-card top deck from Sam could reverse his fortunes. There are really strong, like a Nature's Rhythm here. That'd be wonderful. Anything from the deck, but Sam just takes it, goes to 6.
Uh-oh. All right, here we go. One last one.
No,
and
oh my God.
Nothing.
Just lands. The landfall deck, I mean, it's not the landfall deck, but the green-white deck undone by its own lands, and Dylan wins the marathon.
And this is one of the hallmarks of the Izzet-based decks as well. The fact that they can win very quickly and very very convincingly with a lot of the aggressive opens they can have. But in the late game, when your opponent's drawing Llanowar Elf and Gene Pollinator, and you're drawing, even if your one drops aren't that great, sleight of hand and opt, you're going to dig to the business you need. And then Storm Chaser talent, it's so flexible. In the late game, it's got so much more. It's got, I mean, Burst Lightning as well with Kicker.
Yeah.
Even
that card scales up.
These cards, the deck scales really, really well.
It's
and
a real contrast there between the two decks. It couldn't be greater, right? Compared to your opponent who is just top decking. No card selection, no scaling, nothing.
And still has very good cards, but just if you can't find them and if you can't draw towards them, then it's obviously very bad news. Well, that's that for our first semi-final. Dylan Kakawa will be in the final of this tournament, but who will their opponent be? That is the question we have to answer now. We're going to head to our second semi-final once it is ready. We can remind ourselves of who is playing in this
Scott Aitchison made it through on Mardu Aggro, and I'm not 100% who Scott's opponent will be.
I thought you were going to embarrass me by just having both names off the top of the head.
I've momentarily forgotten. Riley Beck. Riley Beck will be our other.
And how could we forget Riley?
I was about to say, the Riley representation.
How could we forget Riley? What a name that is. What a powerful name indeed. But we can jump down to our feature match area now and see how things go between these two players, between Scott and Riley. You'll never guess who I'll be going for.
Okay, well, that makes one of us for each side because I am firmly with my Mardu brother, Scott Aitchison. I mean, that's very presumptive of me, but I love this deck. I've been repping it out. Molly and I were actually just mutually gushing over this list in the quarterfinal broadcast. I'm not sure if you could have stand to listen to that. It was... But it was an impressive show for the deck. It overcame the Omniscience combo after a tough battle, and here a very different matchup against a similar but not identical landfall-style green-white deck to what we just saw.
Come on, Riles.
Okay. Well, faces down the immediate. Lots of one-drops, lots of great starts in this tournament. Marauding Mako being a sort of bit-time player in Standard, back in force here with another discard-fueled deck, the Shark Pirate.
And look at that. A return to Ravnica Temple Garden.
Beautiful.
Truly a man of taste and refinement here.
I prefer the Rob Alexander original myself, actually.
Okay. All right.
Okay. This is why I'm not popular.
Well, we've got a Moonshadow now coming down, Concealed Courtyard.
Oh, my God.
And a Marauding Mako as well. So a great start here for Scott, powering out these one-drops, and we'll be able to get good value out of these. So the question now comes back to Riley. What can he do in order to mitigate this onslaught? This is his deck. It's not overwhelmingly full of cards that can deal with a start like this. There is interaction in the form of Erode and Bushwhack, but he's wanting to play to the board too, and that's why we're seeing Diadrene.
Yeah, I mean, this Mardu aggro deck, it's been fated for its ability to defeat Prowess, which will make for an interesting finals matchup if Scott makes it through to encounter Dylan, but Scott doesn't know that right now, focused on Riley, and without flyers or ways to remove creatures besides Erode, Riley might also end up being food for Hardened Academic and friends. It all comes down right now to what enablers Scott has, because these creatures are pretty tiny right now, the Makos and the Moonshadow, but once you start to get these discard engines in like Cool But Rude, the damage multiplies very quickly in an almost Prowess-like manner.
Yes, and we see here Coolbert Rood enabling a discard of the Concealed Courtyard, which is going to pump up not just the Moon Shadow with its own ability, but also the Marauding Makos with their discard triggers too. So a Blood Crypt.
Okay.
And... Oh, paying 2 for it. Okay, so representing some form of interaction. Burst Lightning, perhaps?
Yeah, a lot of Mardu aggro lists also have Requiting Hex, but Scott has foregone those this weekend, at least in the main deck, so it's pretty much just Burst Lightning, if I'm correct. All right. Well, his opponent understands the message. As we've said a couple of times, it's an open deck list event, so the mind games are all turned on, and you could have just shocked in that Blood Crypt to send a message. I don't know if that's what Scott would have done, but Riley has to assume now a Burst Lightning is waiting should something vulnerable and tasty...
I don't have to assume anything. Oh, you mean, sorry, the other Riley. Sorry.
I've never to put that on you.
No.
But, I mean, Riley, I can't tell Riley Beck what to do either, not least because these players cannot hear us on coverage, which is probably good for competitive integrity reasons. And he is unafraid. Riley Beck says, go on, bring your Burst Lightning, come out and fight. I am going to play my Badgermole Cub come hell or high water, and I think that's the attitude you have to have. Yeah. You can't slow down against the Mardu deck for sure.
No, you definitely can't afford to play around removal in a situation like this. You're under a lot of pressure. You just got to jam and hope that it's going to be enough. And look, Riley is clogging up the board with meaningful threats. There's not just the Daedrin, there's also the Chocobo now, little baby Chocks. And even if the Badgermole Cub is killed, it will leave behind that 1/1 Forest, which maybe soak up a little bit of damage. Yeah. Do something like that.
We might even be in a position to see the secret fancy tech with Daedrin Synthesis Amalgam, where you can somehow get a landfall trigger out of it. This deck has become wizardly at getting landfall triggers out of cards, Riley.
Okay.
Yeah, so it removes +1/+1 counters from 2 creatures that you control. And lands that are animated by Earthbend have 0 base power and toughness, but do come back to the battlefield when they die.
Yes, they don't. They leave the battlefield and then return.
Yeah, which Sousa's Chocobo loves to see.
Yes.
And Daedrin declares an attack. He's pointing at the land. He's doing a bit of sleight of hand from the green deck for once, as somehow we generate just a silly amount of resources right there. Actually takes the counter off the Chocobo, so keeping the Daedrin's power and toughness high and getting a ton of resources out of the deal.
Yeah, so this I think here, Riley's explaining this sequence.
Yeah, Scott is looking closer at the cards.
Going, oh, it works like that. Oh, a realization in real time. Yeah, a sweet little sequence there.
Yeah.
Which sees the little baby Chocks return to being a 1/2, and the Daedrin here. Oh, double Marauding Mako on the blocks.
Yeah, I don't want to see any more of whatever that just was, says Scott. I will trade you 2 Sharks.
Whatever happened just there, I don't want it to happen again.
I don't understand, and I don't want to understand. Get rid of that.
I don't understand, and I do not wish to.
Take that thing away.
And Burst Lightning also dealing with the little chicken.
But at least you get the robot that Daedrin produces. You got a card. You're still at the same mana. You have somehow a Badgermole Cub has survived all of that carnage. Normally the prime target for anyone playing against a green landfall deck. And Scott in a position, though, to fire back for a lot of damage here as we level up Coolbut Rood. Phase 2.
But Rood.
This is level 2's the big one, I think, Riley.
Right. Okay, let's have a look here. Whenever you discard a card, 2 damage to each opponent. And this deck is in the business of discarding cards. That damage is going to add up very quickly, in addition to the damage done by cards like Moon Shadow, which gets very big very quickly.
Yeah. And this is representing about a medium amount of damage by this deck standards, but still for...
Not good blocks available here for Riley.
No, that carnage last... I don't know if Riley thought that Scott would be game to trade off creatures so aggressively, but... right now, it seems like there's no right answers for Selesnya. You're just under the pump, trying to get your gloves up and block as best you can.
Yeah, and this block isn't great.
Oh, the double block on the Menacing Moon Shadow. I mean, there's still a card in Scott's hand, so even if you commit to this, it could get worse.
Oh, no. And we've got Erode to break up the double block here, so that is an absolute bloodbath here for poor old Riles as he loses both the Badgermole Cub and the 2/2. He does get a land in by way of
Erode.
Compensation.
Yeah.
But not doing much.
Bad news for Riley's everywhere, I'm afraid, as you've never seen a landfall player less happy to get a land. And Scott, and you're taking another read of that Coolbut Rood, Riley, because Chapter 3 is actually relevant. It's not always on these talents, but this happens quite a bit more than Stormchaser's talent, if only because it's cheaper. And there is a little fancy, I'm not sure if this is the line that will be gone for, or if we'll see it activated at all, but if you're wondering why there's 1 Carnage Crimson Chaos in all of these Mardu deck lists, that's a sneaky little line you can do, especially when your hand's already empty. It has a mayhem cost, so even if you are tutoring it to hand and then immediately discarding it, you are able to cast it as though it were in your hand for the rest of the turn, and it generates a ton of damage almost invariably when you do.
Right, yes, that's a clever little line. You activate the gamble mode of Cool But Rude.
A sure gamble.
Tutor and then discard a card, and yeah, with Mayhem it doesn't matter if you hold on to it or not. Oh, very, very clever little thing there, which could be used. Well, let's find out. A Badgermole Cub to activate, or to turn on this this forest with Earthbend.
Right, yeah, we don't want to understate the power of Riley's deck. We've talked about Landfall all weekend, and I'm very excited to talk about Mardu, but we have to respect the power this deck can generate. Badgermole Cub making that land into a 2-mana producer, and then immediately playing out our friend the Trash Eater.
Yes, here we go. The Keen-Eyed Curator comes down as a 3/3, but
yes.
The Mako and the Moon Shadow, they've been getting in for a lot of damage here, and you would think that the beating would continue until morale improves, particularly that we've got this Cool But Rude line that you mentioned before, gamble into Carnage. Even if Scott has just drawn half a ham sandwich here, still is going to be able to have a pretty profitable turn.
Yeah, the Curator can cut off that line in some situations. It matters whether there's triggers, what stacks are involved. But also, I love that there's a little way to squeeze more value out of Diadrene here. That Keen-Eyed Curator could get big really fast in just a couple of activations. We'll see how much more action Scott has in hand. Is that another... No, it's not another road.
Discards the elf here.
Right, to the attack trigger on Cool But Rude, digging for more action. Needs a hardened Academic, I think, would probably be the best thing to find here, just as a flyer and also a card that discourages the use of Keen-Eyed Curator.
Okay.
But we'll have to wait and see if that was drawn after combat. Obviously can't flash it in.
Another double block is going to see the Raccoon hit the bin.
Riley determined to preserve his life total, even if it means sacrificing his Raccoon.
Taking 5, Moon Shadow down to just 1 -1/-1 counter.
Are we going to see, I think it would be our first, at least on coverage, full-sized Moon Shadow if we get there. Scott's close.
I think we got there. So Matt, who was on coverage yesterday, this is his favourite card of all time, Moon Shadow.
Really?
It is, yeah, he was saying.
Okay, so that's taste, I'll give it to... Oh, yes, activation level 3 of Cool But Rude.
Here we go. So is this the Carnage line you were talking about?
There's a few options, because I think Scott still has a card in hand here. Obviously, there's a lot of cards in this deck you don't mind discarding. Could be a Bloodghast, classic for the paper boomers out there. But you could also, I advocated for this against Omniscience and it didn't happen, but you could just gamble for a card you need and hope not to pitch it.
Just hope to win the coin flip.
I mean, some decks reward players who are bold with those sorts of variable lines.
All right, let's find out.
It is random.
We're just going to determine which one we're discarding.
And that one.
That one is discarded.
Oh, no! It is Carnage.
It is the Carnage.
Yeah, so that's your one. That was... Okay, in that case, if that's what you tutored for, which it almost certainly was, that's definitely what you wanted Riley to randomly select.
Yes.
And we're going to read a card right here. Let's all read it together.
So Mayhem is very similar to Madness.
Yes.
Although it doesn't... it presents different timing restrictions when it comes to when you can or can't cast it. So Mayhem essentially just allows you to cast it from the bin after it's been discarded that turn. So Carnage comes down, immediately summons the elf to the battlefield as well. This is a huge amount. This is a huge swing. It's a huge amount of... Well, not even a huge swing. We were already swung in that direction.
Yes.
We're now swinging further.
Yes.
This is a lot of power that's been put on the battlefield in one go.
Yeah, there's some mercy for Riley, namely that if the elf connects and does damage to Riley, you have to sacrifice it. But with Riley only on 3 life at the moment, that part won't matter.
No.
The only other mercy is that I don't think Scott had a haste creature in the bin, which is very often what you have as the target. And you bring in something like Tersa Light Chatter and the damage is immediate to face, whereas Riley at least has one more chance here to try and dig out of the hole.
Yes, difficult to dig upwards, but... Going to have to try to do it all the same.
I mean, sometimes you have to try something really desperate, Riley. Riley's.
Me or him?
Both.
Yeah, you're talking to both of us.
I plead at all and any Rileys who may be listening. I hope Riley Beck isn't listening. Again, competitive integrity, everybody, very important.
All right, well, in comes the forest here.
Only 1 damage represented, but I guess anything counts. You got to make inroads. Now.
And...
Oh, it's tapped to produce mana. That makes more sense.
Not attacking.
It's hard to say when it's a creature.
Yes. Particularly when there's a Badgermole Cup involved.
So, Earthbender Ascension, I mean, we've been talking up this card. It is a real key component, but it's a little understated because it's not as immediate in its impact as something like Might Form Harmonizer. And on 3 life, I don't know if we'll have time to see the full effect of this card, Riley.
So, Earthbender Ascension goes and fetches a forest.
Mm-hmm. So it's, I think, halfway towards becoming a sort of meaningful value generator.
this isn't the sort of card that's very good when you're behind. It does generate a creature and does get you a land, but it's the sort of card that you want to use to try to pull yourself ahead, not necessarily dig yourself, as we said, dig yourself out of a hole.
It's one of those spots where, well, this is at least a blocker, but that's a pretty...
Ooh, escape tunnel's not bad, though.
Never mind. Okay, and now we get to pass. I mean, if your life total was covered up, this could be construed as a position of strength for the aggro deck, because now you look like you're a Mightform Harmonizer away from winning the game, but in fact, Scott Aitchison just has it.
Has it all. So we will move on now to game number 2 and stepping into the booth to walk us through the next part of the game.
Oh, well, I guess we couldn't afford to have too much Riley on one semi-final broadcast, so I'll say a fond farewell to the inestimable Riley Knight, and welcome back to Molly. Molly, have you been enjoying the coverage of our semi-finals so far?
Oh, it's been amazing to watch. I've been watching over live at the feature match area, and now getting to join you in the booth instead is a privilege as always.
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, of course, it's because of the quality of the play we're witnessing, and who wouldn't love a chance to commentate the Mardu aggro deck once more? We had to get that non-Mardu enjoyer out of here, I think.
I was about to say, I think that I've been pulled back in as the Mardu fanatic here. I'm the person who wants to be here commentating this game more than any other, and I'm glad that I now get the opportunity. So thanks for welcoming back to the booth, Tom.
Ah, always, always. Well, Scott is welcoming you as well by winning game 1 there, so you get at least 2 more games of this Mardu aggro deck. And if Scott is able to triumph as early as game 2 here, we could be seeing a whole final set featuring, again, our beloved Mardu discard deck.
Look, I can only hope, Tom. I would love to see, why don't we have a look at the sideboards and see what this matchup's going to hold for us?
True, true. Can't get ahead of ourselves. Sideboarding must happen. So the Mardu discard deck, what does it have against green-white landfall? Because we saw we've seen a couple of different green-white decks in this top 8, but you want slightly different tools against each of them. I guess we'll look at the Selesnya aggro green-white landfall deck first.
Yeah, all right. So let's have a look at this. We've talked all day about how this Selesnya landfall deck is very linear in trying to execute its approach. It just wants to go out and do its thing. I think that there might be some rest in peace value here for this Selesnya deck. We've talked earlier about how the Mardu discard deck leverages its graveyard to great effect, and that rest in peace meaning that those cards don't hit the graveyard for that hardened academic as well.
Yeah, it's a tougher call than it is against decks like Is It Lessons, because it really beats some cards like Bloodghast, but a lot of the time, the cards that only care about discarding and not what happens to the card afterwards will still trigger. So at least Scott won't be completely shut down by a rest in peace.
Yeah, absolutely. They will still trigger, you're entirely right there, Tom, but they won't be recursive in the way that many of them otherwise are. I'd be looking at the Surak Elusive Hunters here as well. We know that that Mardu deck does have some targeted removal in Burst Lightning and Erodes in the deck, and you want to be able to generate more card advantage or protect your threats while you are assembling your, essentially, combo. So I'd also be looking at something like a Snakeskin Veil. What do you think, Tom?
I like the Snakeskin Veils a lot. The Suraks, I think I'd be looking, if I need them, if I need to take out more cards, I bring them in. Otherwise, I mean, it is a little bit slow.
It's always an up and down of what do I actually take out. I may want all of these cards, but I'm not going to play more than 60.
I mean, we haven't seen Sheltered by Ghosts actually get the W yet in this top 8, but I think they might be the right call here. As you said, you don't want to sideboard out in a way that slows you down, but being able to bring in a card that increases the power of your creature, gives you an immediate life swing if it lasts even, the rest of that turn, and can deal with the enchantments like Cool But Rude that are the real core of the Mardu deck's power, that's a big sell to me.
I like that. That's a good call there, Tom. If you're bringing in Rest in Peace, you want more of that same effect, and you're going to keep your Keen-Eyed Curators in, aren't you?
I think they've been pretty good so far. I mean, there's only one in the main here. It has that one downside against a Harsh Academic, but that's not the kind of thing that makes you get off of the card. It's just something to be aware of. So I'd be maybe sideboarding out something like Lumbering World Wagon or those Earthbender Ascensions. We saw that be just a bit sluggish in terms of how fast it develops against the Mardu deck.
Absolutely. It's a little bit late, unfortunately, and a weird thing to say about a 3-drop. Why don't we look at Scott Aitchison's sideboard deck now?
Yeah, absolutely, because this one we have seen less over the weekend, and we mainly focused on, I think, Doorkeeper Thrall last time. Less of a good time for that card this game, since it only affects the ETBs generated by artifacts and creatures, not lands.
Not lands. Very relevant here in this matchup. I think that we would see a Requiting Hex come in for our Badgermoles, for our Llanowar Elves, for our Earth-bended lands. requiring Hex very notably able to target lands.
Yeah, super efficient as well at that. And another efficient spell, if you land it at the right time, is Pyroclasm. It sort of feels like Slagstorm out of the Izzet decks, where you might trip over your own sequencing a little or have to take some awkward lines to avoid blowing up those Marauding Makos and Moonshadows we saw be Scott's opener in Game 1. But that's a good problem to have.
Yeah, you absolutely want to be making sure that you're sequencing your Pyroclasm appropriately, because it is a double-sided Wrath effect to the effect of 2 damage per creature. I don't hate a Seam Rip here as well, just again for the same reason that Requiting Hex is good. Seam Rip helps rip some of those early threats out of our Selesnya landfall deck.
Yeah, I don't want to act like it decides the entire game whether or not you have a 1-mana removal spell to trade for Llanowar Elf, but it has an outsized impact, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Why don't we find out what's actually happened in reality and what we can see from Game 2 of this incredible matchup?
Absolutely. So with the Mardu deck up in the matchup, we'll be seeing Riley get the chance to take the first turn, and opens not with Llanowar Elf or a Mana Orc, which we've, I think, identified as the best possible start, but still strongly.
Yeah, a Chocobo. If I were to... Sorry, we've got a lot of announcements going on in the room here at ANZ Super Series Adelaide, our regional championship. We have so many incredible side events in the room, not just the amazing competitive event that we are watching here live on stream.
Yes.
It's so good to see a Chocobo. I don't know. I watched the recent Pro Tour with Christopher Larson, where every time a Chocobo hit the field, particularly a turn 1, we heard a loud and proud Kakawa.
Is that the noise they make?
It is, according to Christopher Larson.
I see. Well, he would know, I assume.
He would be the foremost expert currently, I imagine. So we've seen a turn 1 play from both players. Obviously ideal from both of these decks that aim to be as aggressive as possible.
Yeah.
Second landfall here from Riley Beck, just a plain old forest.
And Riley thought a really long time about that play land, go to combat set, which shows you when you have decks that are explosive at these, the important decisions start immediately in the game. There's no autopiloting through your first couple of turns. You really have to think through a ton of possible lines, and I think Riley's pretty satisfied with that result. Gets in, unblocked with a Chocobo, gets to deploy a Badgermole Cub, and now has a wide board. And as long as Scott doesn't have one of those sideboard Pyroclasms, this is a great start.
I don't think that asking questions of yourself in this seat right now as part of our top 4 players for this incredible competitive event and one of the 4 remaining people playing off for a spot at Worlds, you just can't autopilot anything at this point, Tom.
I mean, it's been a long weekend and you can't blame people for being human, but if you want to be the best, you have to be able to lock in just a little bit longer, keep going, keep climbing, focus on the current match and the current turn and really think those lines through. There are no room for mistakes here. Scott only plays a Moonshadow and passes back not even a third land here, so maybe not a great start. Look at the body language there, just kind of runs a finger through the hair and smiles.
A little bit sheepish.
Yeah.
Yep.
Could be sandbagging, could be an advanced mind play, or maybe this is a window for Riley Beck to even up this semi-final.
We could be looking at an Erode here, which is a particularly bad removal spell against the Selesnya aggro decks. You don't want to be giving them a free landfall at any point, but it may be worth it to remove something that's going to continue to grow like a Chocobo. We're seeing an Earthbender Ascension here, meaning that there's a landfall this turn, no matter what Scott Aitchison does.
Yeah, Scott smiles even more ruefully here. I mean, he reads the Earthbender Ascension, make sure, like you said, Molly, I think that we could be looking at an Erode here, and I want to say we were praising Scott for the choice of not having Requiting Hexes in the main and only one in the side last round, but you can't be right against every opponent in a standard metagame this diverse. And yeah, it looks really bad right here.
I imagine actually from a Scott Aitchison perspective, if there is an Erode in hand, he would have responded to the Earthbender Ascension, so it wouldn't have had an additional counter. You would have had the same result of removing most likely the Chocobo, but you wouldn't have the additional counter on the Earthbender Ascension.
Yeah.
Earthbender Ascension being incredibly powerful in this deck, giving creatures trample once it hits 4 counters.
Yeah, that definitely would have been the window to fire it off. I guess at least, it probably isn't, it's cold comfort this game, but in a deck like Mardu aggro, if you think Erode is that bad in this spot, you always have the option of just hanging onto it and not playing it and then discarding it away on a future turn.
Yeah, look, you absolutely do, and I imagine that that might be something that would be considered by Scott. You definitely want to be removing that threat if it's getting too big. You want the optionality to cast it, but you don't want to be just jamming it into a board that might appreciate.
And there it is. You were exactly right, and I think it's funny to say we're talking about how bad this card is in a post-board world. As much as it sucks to give your opponent a land here, I don't think you can take it out.
Hold on.
Wait.
We're seeing a crack of the Fable Passage here, which would be the 4th land
drop,
so that land drop will enter untapped, and I think that we're about to see some kind of Snakeskin Veil or Maelstrom Riders.
Yeah, you can't forget about that one land that's currently in the creature line, and Scott gets blown out even harder.
Yeah.
Riley, happy to...
hurts.
Yeah, I don't mind about not getting that landfall trigger if it means my creature stays alive, and Scott plummets to 11 life off that Chocobo hit.
Yeah, and it's always a little bit sad for the Moonshadow as well, because the road's not a permanent. You're not getting any triggers there.
Yeah, Moonshadow not waking up for just that. We need to see a creature or a land or maybe an enchantment hit the graveyard. And I mean, you and I have both been championing this Mario aggro deck, but it can have draws like this. Like the cards, is this a synergy deck? The Moonshadows right now, you can see they do not look like powerful mythic rares. They look like draft chaff.
I will be honest with you, my variant of this Mardu aggro deck, I don't love the Moonshadows. I think that they are super variable threats, and in a field of teamer prowess and is it lessons and things like that that really prioritize that bounce capability, they can just be a liability.
Right, I mean, that's a great choice to make. You could forego the Moonshadows and the Makos, because it doesn't decrease the power of Practiced Offense or Cool But Rude. You know, you can discard any cards you like, and this deck certainly has room for exploration still. Not that Scott hasn't piloted this deck and made it look really good all weekend, but it's just so new to Standard. There's still a lot of stuff to try.
Yeah, absolutely. It's look, it's an incredible deck that has the opportunity to be super powerful, but these are both linear decks. They're both aiming to really enact their game plans, and we are seeing Riley Beck just do it a little bit more efficiently this time around.
Yeah, Scott gets Inti into play, which is a chance to kind of try and drag yourself back into the action, but it only hits a land, which is fine. You get a third land into play, but can't afford to shock it in even, so passing back with just one block, and then, picks up his cards in short order.
Well, you called it. A Sheltered by Ghosts definitely making the main as part of Riley Beck's sideboarding strategy there, Tom. But
again, it's a good card.
Yeah, it turns out that it's very good in this matchup, in that circumstances particularly, because it caused Scott Aitchison to pick up his cards and say, let's do game 3, please.
Yeah, destroy target player on a 2-mana white enchantment. What is the game coming to? But Scott does get another chance. We're going to game 3 here in a semi-final, which is great to see. More of both of these decks. One decisive win to either side. Hopefully game 3, a bit more of a balanced fight as both of these players cling to their last life in RC12 here in Adelaide, Australia.
How do I get me one of the 1-1 white target player loses the game?
I suppose you have to maneuver yourself to the right spot in the game board and then say the magic words 3 times.
All right, I'll try that next time. Thank you, Tom.
All right, so Riley Beck looking for the magic formula of cards to keep in hand here. That's a lot of spells, but we'll need some lands as well here.
Yeah, so how do you, so we've now got one game apiece, Tom. How do you feel about this matchup in general? Where have we got favour now post-board?
I think that the Mardu deck probably has an edge. Not like a massive one where I feel overwhelmed as Riley. There's ways we just saw how the match can play out in your favour, but that was a pretty rough draw from Scott. I'm not sure what his keep was exactly, but you can see he got stuck on 2 lands. He had the Moonshadow, maybe was just hoping he would draw a better enabler, and then suddenly those Moonshadows will be supercharged, but you saw the low end of the card instead. This time we go for a more stable start with the Iron Shield Elf, and of course Scott's back on the play, so I give him a slight advantage.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Tom. I like that analysis there. It is hard to discount this Selesnya landfall deck in any instance, though. The optionality of just such of an explosive start is always there. We have seen a slightly slower start from Riley Beck in this game, though. A Fabled Passage fetching a tapped forest is not necessarily where you want to be.
I mean, it's only turn 1, but yeah, compared to the other turn 1 plays this deck can lead with, that seems slow.
Oh, look, I love me a turn 1 Llanowar Elf, and a turn 2 Llanowar Elf is always a little bit sadder.
turn.
But that is what we see.
Yeah.
Chocobo and Llanowar Elf both out to play.
Better than your average one drop on turn 2, which screams awkward draw to me usually, but getting to immediately landfall trigger the Chocobo, it's like it's caught up from its turn 1 potential and giving you 2 juicy targets for any requiting hexes Scott may have brought in. Instead goes with Inti.
Yeah, it's interesting. It actually signals to me that Riley might have drawn that second forest because otherwise you could have played a forest and a Llanowar Elf and then immediately played a Chocobo Fabled Passage, fetch the land and have 2 triggers on the Chocobo immediately. So if you'd sequenced it the other way round, it would have been just that slightly 1+1/+1 counter better, and therefore I think Riley may have drawn that forest in that turn.
Which means that's an interesting sort of hand to keep. The one lander where your only land is Fabled Passage, and that gates your playing out of your 1-drops. It makes you curious to see how fast things are going to get better for Riley, because you're not keeping it for the explosive start. Maybe that's why Earthbender Ascension hitting the battlefield now with a much earlier timing, probably going to see a bigger show from this card in Game 3.
Yeah, right. So took a very risky hand that is paying off, quite possibly here for Riley Beck.
Yeah.
We're seeing quite a board development that's going to make it hard for Scott Aitchison to really get impactful damage in from this point.
Yeah, and this is why it's frustrating to see the Chocobo in particular. I mean, especially with the Earthbender Ascension in tow. Normally with the Iron Shield Elf, you can, if you need to, you're not really a defensive deck, but you can stall for time a little bit with an indestructible blocker. But when you have a giant bird being granted trample by the Ascension, things like Iron Shield Elf cease to matter as obstacles to your victory, and Scott will have to pick up the pace. I saw him discard a land to Inti and then hit another land off the top. So sometimes that in Game 2 he was digging to find more lands. Clearly this time, something of the opposite.
I think it's also very telling on Riley Beck's part that he hasn't even moved that Fabled Passage into the creature zone.
That's true.
It is going to be sacrificed to generate 2 land drops because of the land bend trigger as well as the Fabled Passage.
So Inti reveals Burst Lightning. That's playable right now. Last turn, we had no chance of playing whatever we hit. It was just a way to put a counter on the elf and get some churn going through our hand. But now we're seeing the power of the Seneschal of the Sun.
Yep. So Burst Lightning taking out the Llanowar Elf here.
That Chocobo just too big.
Yeah, Chocobo will be... Riley also has the opportunity to just block with the Fabled Passage and sack post blocks, right? The Iron Shield Elf does not have trample, despite being a 5/3.
Yeah, I mean, it's still good to attack, even if you had no chance of getting damage to trigger Inti, and I suppose you force the sack of the Fabled Passage now, as opposed to letting it get any better if Riley was going to get greedy, try and untap, and then play another landfall creature. But yeah, things not looking great for my favourite Scott Aitchison here, the one I picked to win Game 3. Riley instead in a commanding spot, and Scott is really thinking this through, actually.
I want to errata my previous comment, please, because putting the +1/+1 counter onto the elf
gives
from
it trample.
Inti does give it trample until the end of turn. A really powerful ability there, as you said, from the Central of the Sun.
Yes, so it's pretty good, especially on a 3/1 creature. Scott may probably discard an additional card to make it indestructible, which would trigger part of Inti again, not that first part, but it does give you another impulse draw. So many little engines of value. I love all the little wheels in the Mardu deck.
I think it's really important because it's very easy for this Mardu deck that prioritizes discarding cards to just run out of cards in hand and run out of gas. Something like Inti that just provides you the option to continue to draw cards or continue to find your way through your deck and find more threats is just super important.
Yeah, you don't go minus a card to give indestructible, which feels pretty bad. You go card neutral, ideally.
Yes, absolutely. What are we seeing here from Riley? We've got a lot of land fiddling from both players here. There's still a consideration.
I mean, it's not clear from the alignment of creatures whether or not we're before or after blocks, but I guess with trample, maybe Riley decided that blocking wasn't that important. We see an erode placed into the stack by Scott, and Riley cracks that Fabled Passage.
Yeah, fetching up a untapped forest, very reminiscent of last game.
Oh dear.
And as I said earlier, cracking that Fabled Passage while it's land bended means that you will get both the land from the Fabled Passage and also the land bend trigger where the Fabled Passage comes back tapped onto the battlefield. So 2 triggers for the Chocobo. And we're seeing a Snakeskin Veil.
Yeah.
Yep.
In
so
a battle...
exactly like last game, play it out again. Let's go. That worked for me then. It's going to work for me now.
Scott's like, could you not have it one time? But at
Riley
least it's...
says sorry, but not sorry.
Yeah, sorry, not sorry at all, considering the stakes in this one. Like, well, you know, commiserate with your boys, but I'm going to the grand finals if this all works out in my favor.
Yep.
That said, it's not quite as bad, I feel like, in this game for Scott. At least you can make the elf indestructible and you're not dead immediately on the crackback. That's still a big swing, though.
Yeah, we didn't actually see a block in the end. I think it actually may have been post blocks.
Yeah, I think Scott was holding the erode in case there was a block, because obviously with trample you can just kind of convert that to damage, and then well, I'm not wasting this erode. I'll fire it off, and finds that in fact there is a snakeskin veil.
Yeah, if it had been pre-blocks or even during blocks, I imagine that we would have seen the Chocobo come to play there to force Scott Aitchison to discard that card to create indestructible on the elf.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, from Riley's seat, if you're holding the snakeskin veil, that almost seems like a cool play to make, but didn't want to risk the bird, and as long as you can force Scott to move first with that erode, which he did, you come out looking like diamonds there. Riley, Beck, now considering what to do with a pretty impressive amount of mana. Take a read of Inti.
Yeah, it's always good to read a card when it's got that many words on it, Tom.
It's still, on defense though, it is kind of just a 2-2.
It is a 2-2. It's not that good defense. It's generally a turn it sideways kind of card.
I guess.
Or at least have it on the board while other things turn sideways.
We must technically respect the small chance that you could pitch a card to Iron Shield Elf, which you can do at any time, and reveal off of Inti something like an erode for 1 mana. But that would be a pretty ambitious play to make.
It would. You would be relying on the heart of the cards for that one. You'd be tapping your top of your deck before you revealed that card off the top, I think.
I guess with you may play that card until your next end step, the floor of the play is kind of low. Like with 3 mana, most things you hit off into are going to be playable next turn if you want them.
Yeah, for sure.
You roll the dice.
Until your next end step is very relevant, like activating this ability in your opponent's end step.
Okay, Riley's like, how much would you like to activate it if I threaten to kill your elf? Now, erode is a destroy spell. It is not, once again, not quite Path to Exile. And we're going to do the thing.
Yep, we're going to do the thing. Sorry, and you're certain that the erode's targeting the elf here?
Riley pointed at the elf.
Cool.
I'm not. I think. I mean, he might have.
I was trying to get an overlay going. I missed the point, which is why I was asking.
Yeah, it could have been players discussing like what's happening in response. Because even if Inti's targeted here, I might still fire this off, right?
It's definitely
acting while you have this 2-card engine on the board.
Yeah, generating card advantage may be an entirely appropriate response here. There we go. Double erode.
Second erode. Discard again.
Yep, discard again, and we've got some Inti triggers to happen.
Now, erode, getting the land off erode is not dependent on the creature being destroyed. It's not if it is destroyed this way. So Scott's actually in line to get double rampant growth here. This is a really interesting turn.
That's a good point.
Carnage off the top.
Inti trigger does happen before the lands are fetched.
Yes, yes. We'll see 1 Inti resolve, and then indestructibility granted, and then an erode, and then the same thing again.
And then the same thing again twice, yeah.
But this is a one of, and it's a pretty high impact card, as long as you have the mana to cast it, which we do. You'd love to cast it for less, but might still be good with Tersa Light Shatter in the graveyard. I like the look of Carnage, Crimson Chaos, or Arena players might know this as Desecrex. Fancy reanimation spell?
Yeah, for sure. Returning target creature card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains this creature attacks each combat if able.
And
very relevant when we're looking at a graveyard with a Tersa in it.
Yeah, you only get 1 hit out of the creature usually. If it connects with a player at sacrifice, but often that's enough to win the game. It's so much damage, and you get to keep a 4/3 trample, which is not bad.
Yeah, and there's great enters the battlefield triggers from that Tersa as well. The double
100%.
discard, double draw.
Tersa is always the card I am thinking of when I am looking at Carnage, Crimson Chaos. It feels so good. I don't want to say I've won the game every time I've resolved that sequence, but it feels pretty strong.
You heard it here from Tom. Carnage resolution equals game win.
Oh, okay. We didn't discuss this, I think, when we were looking at Requiting Hex, but there's another one-off removal spell on the spell. Shoot the Sheriff coming in huge there as it takes that bird to jail.
Absolute clincher.
Well, I guess it takes it to the ground, but it removes it from the battlefield is the important aspect. It destroys target non-outlaw creature. Couldn't slap a cowboy hat and bandana on the Chocobo fast enough. And suddenly there's a big hole in Riley's board. Just a 1/1 Llanowar Elves. We can start growing that up with the Earthbender Ascension. but it's not quite going to replace the Chocobo anytime soon.
Yeah, and with Riley Beck on 6, I imagine he's starting to sweat just a little bit.
I wonder whether, like, double a road on the potentially indestructible creature, it was you tried to juke out Scott, but if at least one of those erodes went towards Inti, you couldn't get trample on the elf this turn, and at least you'd have some blocks, but Scott now with a great window can still play Carnage.
Yeah, he's got a great window to deal some damage here. It is indicative of both of these decks and their ability to kind of come through from nothing, is that this Mardu aggro deck, even Scott going down to 1 card in hand, still has managed to present really decent threats here, challenging Riley Beck 6 life.
We don't know whether Riley Beck brought it in, and we may never, Molly, but I bet he wishes he had that rest in peace right now.
I imagine he does. We will, I guess, have to find out, although Riley is currently empty-handed, and if he's top-decking a rest in peace, I don't think he's super happy about it.
We go to combat, so we do not choose... I mean, it would be a hefty investment to spend 4 mana on Carnage to get back a haste attacker, but we decide to go to combat with just our Elf. We can only trample one thing, I suppose. So.
Yeah. So Elf is currently a 6/4, however. Immediate discard of a starting town there from Scott Aitchison to generate the trample. So 1, 2, 3, 4 of it soaked up, 2 going through, and the elf is indestructible.
Is it? It was discarded to Inti, I think. So there was no cards left in hand. That was a draw and forced immediate discard. So Scott actually made that attack knowing that the elf might have to trade. There was no... We ran out of cards in hand. What you were saying, coming home to matter in this match.
Yeah, you were entirely right there. It was discarded to Inti, the Inti trigger of when you attack, rather than the elf.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess that is valuable because without the trample, there's no point in attacking, but Scott...
It would still clear up a blocker. There's an argument there for still attacking.
Scott, I suppose, just thought, well, if you double block, I like that trade, but there's a Barsing Say on Riley's side and an Earthbender Ascension, and now a second Earthbender Ascension, so every turn Riley gets in this game is very important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that elf attack was maybe a little loose. I think Scott really feeling the pressure to close out this game before Riley draws one of his big threats. It was, you know, losing an elf that generally has indestructible for 2 damage is a difficult one to justify, unless you just find another elf off the top. And you know what, Tom? I'm going to eat all of my words because I should just learn to be a better Magic player.
I think that in the position of the limited perspective we have, it's reasonable to say that play was bold. It was some plays, or most plays in Magic, I think the players commit to, are pretty advantageous clearly to them.
Yep.
That one was a real trade of resources in a risky position, but you have to have some guts.
That's what you do when you are a seasoned pilot of this deck.
That is true.
Scott Aitchison undoubtedly has many more reps of this deck than either of us, and knows the kind of trade that he's making when he runs into those plays.
Good players can make the obvious plays. Only expert players on a deck can make those sorts of plays where you are really testing the limits of your deck because you kind of know more precisely than most how much damage you can expect off an average top deck.
Yeah, absolutely. Top decking damage is this Selesnya landfall deck's specialty, however. So,
I mean, well, some of the time. It's like if you average it out, it top decks a lot, right? Because Mightform Harmonizer is like infinite damage. But last game, we saw a lot of top decked, or last semi-final, we saw so many top decked Llanowar Elves, I began to lose faith in the deck.
What we don't like to see as Scott Aitchison is a Mossborn Hydra immediately followed by a land, as well as Earthbender Ascension triggers on both.
That's my turn to eat my words. That is maybe the best top deck in this scenario. That is so many counters so quickly.
The way that, for those watching along at home, the way that these players choose to stack those triggers is obviously the Earthbender Ascension triggers happening first to grow the Hydra as large as possible before the counters on the Hydra are doubled.
Yeah.
So we saw the Earthbender Ascension +1/+1 on there, and then a double of that on the Hydra to go to 4.
Definitely one of those bits of tech you have to pick up quickly when you play this kind of list if you're playing with Mossborn Hydra or the Mightform Harmonizer, those triggers that say double the power. You can always finagle your fetches, even if you're doing multiple in a row in most cases, to get all of the smaller increments of power on first and then resolve double, 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 double And that's how you get the really massive swings.
That's the way you want to be doing it with both Mossborn Hydra and Mightform Harmonizer here for this deck. It's one of those things that plays really smoothly on MTG Arena and is a little bit more complex when you're playing at a competitive level here in paper. You not only need to be responsible for all of your own triggers, but you need to announce them appropriately for your opponent.
And Riley, I mean, has been doing a lot of sitting and waiting here in a tough spot mentally, but now that the top decks have favoured the Selesnya player that Scott's sort of onslaught has faltered, Riley immediately back in command of the match, confidently deploying that Hydra and putting Scott on the hot seat.
Yeah, that Hydra has trample. Indestructible blocker in our Iron Shield Elf does nothing. 1 damage prevented every time.
And even if you can...
not a good position here for Scott Aitchison.
The amount of trample on this board is truly impressive. 2 Earthbender Ascensions. Scott's just kind of never blocking effectively again. Has to find a way to end the game. The Pyroclasm looking kind of sad here.
Very sad.
That's a little... Oh, no, it's not. It's not even better. You don't have a second black source.
No, and also it'll go into exile when Scott can't play it rather than into the graveyard, which is just a very sad place for a Bloodghast to be.
All the cards lining up wrong for Scott Aitchison. Discards another card, hits another Impulse Draw. Shockland also not what you wanted to see.
This is... Riley Beck has turned this game around very rapidly, and we are seeing what feels like the beginning of the end for our Mardu Aggro discard deck.
Scott has come so close, 4 life points away from Worlds. You see that smile there? That was a rough turn. A lot of his hopes were riding on those impulse draws to hit Bloodghast. Bloodghast land is rough.
It's a very generous description to call that a smile there, Tom. That was a grimace if I ever saw one.
Okay, yeah, look, I'm trying to support, I'm trying to send positive vibes into the feature match area, not only because I want to see more of this Mardu discard deck, but because I want to see more of this semi-final. We don't want to say goodbye to any of our players here in the top 8, as great a run as they've already had, but Riley Beck here, I am afraid will have no such compunctions about sending Scott Aitchison home if it is within his power to do so.
Yeah, Riley gunning here for a spot at Worlds. So both of these players already having achieved the incredible feat of securing a Pro Tour ticket as part of their top 8 here at this event at ANZ Super Series Regional Championship Adelaide. But it is still a lot on the line. The invitation to Worlds, a huge event for either of these players in their budding professional careers.
Yeah, I would be telling everyone I knew if I came top 4 out of 190 plus players, but obviously if in your mind you can't help but frame it as I was so close to a Worlds invite, you will go home and you'll be thinking about the decisions you made in this game 3 for a long time, Scott Aitchison. If you can't pull it out here, he throws the Inti under the bus there, blocking one of the creatures. Perhaps if he's lucky it didn't have trample, but there's still a lot of damage crashing through. Might get one more turn here.
A very late choke.
No! Land
off the top.
An inglorious end for Mardu Aggro, but that's the way it goes. As you said, both of these decks in top decking, they can feast or famine. Land, not it for Scott. And Riley fights through a pretty formidable opposition to make it to finals against Dylan Kakawa.
Yeah, it's going to be an incredible finals match. And we've said it all the way through the 8 rounds of Swiss that we did yesterday and now all the way into our finals. But looking at the metagame for this standard event, this regional championship here in Adelaide, Australia, it has been the titans of the metagame, Selesnya Landfall and Izzet Prowess all the way through. And here we have them together in the finals.
Yes, absolutely. It's been a pleasure to cast, and I'm afraid I'll have to say goodbye to you now, Molly.
Yes.
Riley Knight is just itching to get back in the booth and commentate the finals, but it's been a pleasure all weekend to watch these players play, and I hope everyone at home enjoys the grand finals coming right up.
Thank you so much, Tom. It's been a pleasure as well. We will see you shortly as we come back for the finals.
We here at Command Fest in the ANZ Super Series with our very own Riley Knight. He's been on the mic all weekend. Tell us what's been going on.
It's been a big weekend here in Adelaide. We've had, as you say, Command Fest going on for all the casual fans. We've had the ANZ Super Series for the more competitively minded people. But on top of these tournaments, I mean, there is so much else to do at events like these. There are vendors, there's prize wall, there's a magic store, there are the artists. There's so much going on at events like these. Lots of fun coming along to these big events.
So much fun, and we've got an even bigger event happening later this year. Can you tell us about that, when it'll be, all the goss?
Yes, indeed. So the Spotlight Series is coming to the Australia-New Zealand region, the Asia-Pacific region. I mean, we've had these events in North America. There's one coming up in Japan very shortly, but it's the first time it's coming to Australia. Spotlight Series coming to Brisbane in August. And I can't wait. This is going to be huge. I mean, these events right now, the regional championship type events, they're big as it is, but there is so much more going on at the Spotlight Series. Thousands of dollars in prizes for competitive players, a pathway to the Pro Tour, the World Championship, and of course, stuff for fans of Magic of all kinds to do. Whether you're a competitive fan or a casual fan, whether you want to play games of Commander or Limited or Standard, what have you, Spotlight, it's going to be massive. So if you're not already planning to come, you should be. It's going to be a great time.
Absolutely. We will see you there.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the booth here at the ANZ Super Series final from Adelaide. My name's Riley, I'm joined by Molly, and it is all business now. We are down to our final here. Molly, 2 players in the feature match area. One of them will be going to the World Championship, and we're going to find out who.
I can't wait. This is the matchup of the tournament. As I was just saying, for anyone who has sticked with us in the stream all the way through our quarterfinals and our semis, and now right here for the finals, we have Selesnya Landfall versus Tima Prowess, and it has been the match of the tournament so far.
Yes, indeed, it is one of the most important matchups in the standard format, and we're going to dive right into it here and get underway with our final here at the ANZ Super Series from Adelaide. Great to have your company. Let's meet our players. We've got Dylan Kakawa. No, that is not the right one. No, that's not the right one either. We're going to get there. Dylan Kakawa playing this team. Is at least that sort of splashing green. It's got the elusive otter.
Yeah.
Against them, Riley Beck on this Selesnya Landfall list. A lot of people have played Selesnya Landfall in response to Izzet, believing it to have a pretty good matchup there. And then the response to that response is then you start playing green in your Izzet deck, elusive otter giving you a little bit of extra, giving you some extra tools.
It's definitely been consequential to this matchup for sure. The ability to go through what looks like, a board state full of small blockers that green deck can produce is super relevant to this Izzet deck. And we've talked all weekend about how versatile this Izzet deck can be, really being transformative into more of a control archetype often when it's matched up against these Selesnya Landfall decks. The ability to take out some of the earlier threats and just stop the momentum of this Landfall deck, which can be quite linear in its execution.
Well, this is one of the great strengths of the Izzet deck, is that it does have these explosive draws where it can win the game very quickly. It has obviously a very low to the ground game plan when it wants to, with cheap creatures and interaction and card draw to make sure that it's drawing the card that it wants. But as you say, it is able to play a slower, longer, more controlling game. Earlier on in the semi-finals, we saw the power of one mana enchantment that makes a little 1/1, right? All of a sudden is redrawing your cards from the graveyard. Stormchaser Talent is able to then flood the board. If you get to the 3rd level, you've got the 6 mana to pay for it.
So much value.
Doesn't happen often, but the point is that you so rightly made is that you can do that with this deck. It's not just a one-dimensional strategy.
Yeah, exactly. There we go. We've got both of our finalists here, Riley Beck and Dylan Kakawa, filling your screen right now, going into our long-awaited finals. It has been an incredible 2 days of Magic that have led us here. Yesterday, 8 rounds of Swiss all day Saturday, and we are now in our final match of the tournament.
Our top 8 coming to this conclusion here. Dylan, at the top of the Swiss yesterday, so we'll go first. Our first seed gets to choose whether to play or draw, goes first, and opens very strongly with a Stormchaser Talent, but an equally strong start on Riley Beck's side of things with Llanowar Elves.
Off to a racing start, both decks. Both of them, this is the start that they want, right? So we will see for whom it plays out best. It'll be interesting to see whether Dylan chooses to proverbially bolt the bird here. It's been a very popular play that has happened throughout.
So 30 years, yeah.
Yes. But also here today at this tournament at Regional Championship Adelaide.
I think in the situation, yeah, you can't let the Llanowar Elves live if you've got the option, particularly as it means, you'll be able to get in for damage as well. The Otter can clip in for a little bit. Multiversal Passage coming down is going to cost Dylan 2 life in addition to the 2 paid for the Steam vents.
But Llanowar Elves being particularly relevant, not just because of what it says on the card, but if Riley Beck follows it up with a Badge Mole card, which is a very common play turn 2 play for this Selesnya aggro deck, it'll tap for 2. It does double duty, that Llanowar Elf, all of a sudden.
I don't think Riley would be blocking there in a billion trillion years.
No.
But still, you test the water, see what you're going to block. No, you're not going to block. Right, take the block. All right, back to Riley here as we see the Slick Shot Show-Off put into the plot zone. Let's see what the follow-up here is with the Llanowar Elves. Not going to be a Badgermole Cub. Or it's very interesting sequencing if so. No, it's a Salsa Chocobo. Here we go. The Chook is on the loose here.
Yes.
Oh, what an escape tunnel to follow things up, Molly.
Perfect.
That's fantastic here, yes.
All right. We're seeing Dylan really set up for what I'm sure they're hoping to be a very explosive next turn, though. Hopefully 3 mana and with a plotted show-off, it's very threatening. sitting here in this board right now.
The
Here we
main
go.
phase activation of the escape tunnel, of course, to grow the bird out of the range of a
Burst lightning.
burst lightning or what, something similar. So boomerang
I like
basics on
that.
the Storm Chaser's talent. That's a classic. Is it prowess play here? Return the talent, draw a card.
Just so much value. Like this sequence has been the foundational component of this prowess deck in all of its many forms over the last several cycles of standard in the iteration of this Is It Prowess deck. From the very first one that had Quantum Riddler in it to what we are seeing today and what we have seen all weekend.
So we have the Storm Chaser talent being replayed now after a Verge continues to see Dylan's lands develop. And an attack with 2 prowess triggers. So that otter is a 3/3 and the Slick Shot Show-Off is incalculably
A 5/2.
calculably large.
5/2.
Oh, sorry, calculably large.
It's all right. All you got to do is do the math, Riley. I know that that is definitely your forte.
Numbers not particularly agreeable to me. So we've got a Spell Pierce that is targeting that Erode. I think Riley would have been relying on that pretty heavily to make sure that not too much damage was done. But it's going to be the opposite here with this Slick Shot Show-Off now. Even larger. We didn't have numbers that went that high before, and now we certainly don't.
Yeah, 7 from the show-off and 4 from the otter, meaning coming in for 11 so early in the game.
Riley Beck down to 8 after having taken 1 from the otter last turn.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my goodness.
It is a very explosive turn 3, just as I'm sure that Dylan hoped it would be. Have we got an appropriately explosive clap back from Riley Beck? Because he will need to certainly be enacting some kind of game plan here.
Yeah.
Obviously, his Erode being unsuccessful last turn means that he's in a quite precarious position.
Okay, another escape tunnel. That's good. That's going to grow the Chocobo.
That flying threat in the show-off, though, is putting Riley at risk, for sure.
Okay, and waking up the escape tunnel now with the Earthbender Ascension.
Absolutely, very common. Riley won't be expecting any trample from those otters, so the ability to not only block but then sacrifice for a double land trigger, super valuable in making sure that his bird stays out of damage, that Chocobo.
Seems a bit weird to put the counters on a land that you want to sacrifice, but it does actually end up getting you a lot of value in the long run.
Absolutely, yeah. You get the escape tunnel trigger to be able to fetch your land, and then you also get your Earthbended land trigger, returning that escape tunnel to the battlefield tapped.
Oh, and then you can sacrifice it again. Get another one. Oh, baby. All right, here's an opt from Dylan.
Prowess at 1.
Yes.
I think Dylan's hoping to clinch the game this turn. That's, I imagine, why they're tapping the table. Sitting in Riley's seat right now, my opponent tapping the table, counting damage is never what I want to be looking at.
You'd have to be worried. You're not going to you don't have to do too much to get the Slick Shot Show-Off to lethal proportions here. In it comes. I think there's another cantrip in hand as well.
Yeah.
I think it's another opt.
So we're looking at 1 Slick Shot for 3 damage, the other currently for 1. But here's the here's the opt that means that one is for 5 and 1 is for 3. Exactly.
One's for 3. Making the numbers dance. Dylan Kakawa takes out game number 1 quite convincingly too. A great start from them. The Storm Chasers' talent, following it up with enough disruption to make sure that their opponent wasn't able to, because that Erode could have been huge.
It could have been, absolutely. It would have been game-changing for Riley if that Erode had landed, and that main deck Spell Pierce really justifying its spot in that deck.
Definitely, and even against a deck that is, overwhelmingly filled with creatures, Spell Pierce can still do a lot of work. And when you think about how much damage that Slick Shot Show-Off did, had it died to the Erode, would have been a very, very different story. Anyway, that's not the world in which we live. We are now looking at Dylan being just 1 game away from a berth at the World Championship. Let's have a look at the decks and decide what sort of sideboarding might be going on here. We'll kick things off with Riley Beck's list. So you cast our eyes over it. Anything stand out to you there? We've got Snakeskin Veil.
I was about to say Riley Beck will not be walking past those Snakeskin Veils in his sideboard right now. We saw him use it to great effect in the semi-final games, actually clinching him both game 2 and 3 of that game against Mardu discard. So I imagine he's going to bring it in right now to face down all of that damage-based removal that we'll see from Dylan Kakawa's deck.
Anything else that you like as well in addition to the Snakeskin Veils?
Look, Mistborn Hydra is it's a bit of a liability in this kind of matchup where there's so much bounce capability from the Is It Prowess deck.
True.
So I think that that's staying there, but I do like a Surak Elusive Hunter here just to generate some card advantage, even if your opponent is removing your early threats.
Yeah, it's not so much the wanting to play an uncountable threat. The trample's very useful as well against 1/1 blockers, but really what you're looking for is there to recoup some of the loss that you'll face against the point removal of the Izzet deck, and it makes bounce spell a lot worse.
The other
a
big
lot worse.
Absolutely. And the other big one in this matchup, as we saw in one of the quarterfinal matches, is Sheltered by Ghosts.
Okay.
It was one of the things that carried Riley to this point was his ability to remove some of those more substantial long-term threats in things like the Storm Chaser's talent, or even Elusive Otters, which he knows can bypass his board.
We'll move on now and have a look at Dylan's sideboard here. Some interesting options, lots of one-ofs in this list. But again, look, we've talked about this matchup. We've talked about some of the cards that come in. We're looking at cards like Flash Freeze, looking at cards like Seer. We saw Slag Storm do some work in the semi-finals as well. So what else are you looking at in this situation?
I definitely think you'd be considering something like Broadside Barrage. 5 damage at instant speed is super relevant. It also has some hand curation in there. And a null taking out the Earthbender Ascensions that you might see is definitely valuable. And because you've got so many cantrips in this deck, if a null's not relevant for you in this game, you just move it on.
True.
Yeah, look, all of the bounce effects are coming straight in, all of the permission suite. So as you said, that Flash Freeze being super valuable here in this matchup. I feel like Dylan may be regretting that that's only a one-of right here, considering how much of the Selesnya landfall meta they have actually encountered all the way through their journey in the Swiss. But obviously they managed to navigate it quite well because here they are sitting at our final table.
Interesting when you talk about a null and some of the targets there, because it's not just... There's also Lumbering World Wagon, there's also Diadrene, that's an artifact as well. But it is... The Izzet deck, whether they do or don't bring in these cards, it's not really the point we're making here. The fact is that with things like Opt, Sleight of Hand, giving card selection, you can scry away those cards you don't want.
Exactly.
It gives you a lot... it gives you great many more options.
Yeah, you want that optionality. You want your deck to be as versatile as possible because you are taking on, particularly in this next deck where Dylan will be going, this next game where Dylan will be going in on the play, they will be taking on a slightly different role. Sorry, on the draw.
Yeah.
Sorry, they'll be going in a slightly different role where they will want to be more reactive, more responsive, and therefore they will be definitely deploying all of those early removal pieces to stop Riley going out and doing what they want to do, and may even be considering some of the more late game plays like Ral Crackling Wit that are sitting there in his sideboard as well.
Well, let's find out. We're going to head down to our feature match area now. Game number 2 of our final here at the ANZ Super Series in Adelaide is about to get underway. The two players getting stuck in here, and you would imagine Riley on the play. It looks like Dylan mulliganing here.
Yes.
Okay, so mulligan to 6.
We did see Ral coming in from the board in these matchups from similar decks, more of the heavy play prowess that was running the Eddie Merc-Crab version of this. Ral was often an inclusion post sideboard against the Selesnya landfall decks, so it'll be interesting to see if Dylan brought that tech in.
Perfect start here for Riley. Opponent on a mulligan, opening up with the Llanowar Elves. Is that 2 lands for Dylan? I believe it is. I think I saw a second land.
There was a second land. It's at the back. Yep.
All right. So in a practical joke, getting rid of the Llanowar Elves. Unsurprising to see the elf killed on site.
Particularly because it looks so. Dylan's definitely got a elusive otter there in hand, but also a boomerang basics. 2 elusive otters, a sleight of hand, and a boomerang basics there. So threats to deploy, but slightly slower ones.
So
I wouldn't be surprised to see that boomerang basics deployed later against the Chocobo once it's grown. And
yeah, bounce spells, you can get a lot of value out of these landfall creatures that pick up counters with a bounce spell, much more than usual against big green creatures.
Yeah.
All right, so another Spire Bluff Canal here for Dylan. I think that was drawn. I think the keep was a 1-lander. I'm pretty sure. I didn't see that. I didn't see that Spire Bluff Canal in the opener, but got there in the end.
Sometimes better lucky than good, Riley.
Sometimes. sometimes. Although I think you get away with keeping one-landers with these Izzet decks because they, they have such high velocity. They've got so many cantrips, they can find that second land if they need to so much of the time.
Keeping a one-lander with an Impractical Joke and a sleight of hand in it is not the riskiest play that we will have seen at these tables all weekend.
And there is a sleight of hand you mentioned. Have a look at the top two. Ooh.
Storm Chaser's Talent and a land. I think the land has to stay.
It sucks to have to put the Storm Chaser's Talent to the bottom of the library there. It is one of the best cards in the deck, but you need to keep hitting your land drops. Dylan recognises that. Playing out the Elusive Otter, so they're on the board now. But at the moment, this little chook is
2-3.
large and also going to get bigger.
Yeah, large and in charge. It's definitely going to grow. I'm sure that Riley didn't keep a 2-land hand. So we will see more of that. Planes coming down. It's really interesting, right, for Dylan Kakawa and that choice. I'm all about greed is good, but Dylan making the very disciplined, correct play of keeping that land there.
Now, this is Surak. We talked about this card coming in from the sideboard, and it is a very, very useful tool. Oh, it's also in the main deck as well, so this could be main deck copy. But it's a very, very useful card against this interaction that the Izzet deck brings to bear. When you're at risk of having your Chocobo reset by a bounce spell, it takes the sting off it a little bit when you get to draw a card.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're drawing a card off that, it's a sad interaction, but you're not going to have a cry about it. And Surak also matching up well against Dylan Kakawa's hand here, even outsizing the burst lightning that we see there. Just that 4-3 body from the get-go being super relevant against all that damage-based removal from Dylan Kakawa.
3 toughness, really key in this format, defined by 2 damage removal spells like Burst Lightning. Another Elusive Otter here for Dylan. Back over to Riley, who is in a pretty good position. And we'll see what this turn has to say about things, because with further development of this board, you'd think that the pressure is back on Dylan now to find answers. Yeah,
but it doesn't actually look like that from Riley's seat, right? If you're looking at Dylan's board, you're staring down 2 Elusive Otters that you know can get really big, and you're also staring down 2 open mana from the deck that, spell pierced you and your Erode last turn. And, if you're holding something like an Earthbending Ascension, you're really considering about whether or not you're just running it out there. We see that Riley does choose to do that, and it will end up, paying off for him, but doing that into 2 open mana is a very tense exercise, I imagine, for Riley Beck right now.
All right. Earthbender Ascension is going to fetch another land here, which is going to juice up the Chocobo once again. Yeah, and also just representing future damage in the form of trample and +1/+1 counters as the game continues to go long. So if Dylan isn't in a position to close out this game early, that Earthbender Ascension is only going to continue to represent more and more threat. There's a lot of damage. 8 damage. And the Elusive Otters may do well in this matchup in terms of forcing through damage, but they're not great on blocks. No, not good blockers, as most prowess creatures are not. I think you mentioned earlier, it's often very small power and toughness only to grow, and if you're in Dylan Kakawa's seat, you really don't want to be using your spells to pump your Otters defensively. We do have a Burst Lightning here that does do something. Okay. In conjunction with a block. Yeah, this is a disaster really for Dylan. This is
Dylan
not what
2
you
for
want to be
wanting
doing.
themselves here, yeah.
Because there's a no, it's worse, right? Because it's a
2/2 now, and with the 2 damage from the Burst Lightning, so 2 for wanting themselves and Riley drawing a card, yes, would be considered worse. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's not. It's worse. It's even worse than a 2 for 1 because you get to draw the card. So yeah, 2 for 0. 2 for 0. That's really not where you want to be. But Dylan recognising got to protect that life total. Got to get the Surak off the board as well because this does clear the way for the Boomerang basics onto the Chocobo, right? Yeah. Because you don't want to bounce the Surak. You have to kill it. But it did cost a card in order to do that. Resetting the Chocobo is a pain in the bum here for Riley, but still has got a meaningful threat in the form of that forest. Has got the Ascension working away and can redeploy this bird and get it working again. And Riley's been steadily deploying threats, but we've certainly not hit the top end of Riley's curve yet. There's definitely opportunity here that he's just got more gas in hand and continued to do that. He's very kindly playing open-handed for known cards for Dylan there, which is why the Chocobo is still on the field. It's just short-handing that many competitive players do, leaving it there so that Dylan knows that
those that they know. But Riley just doing a kindness there rather than putting it back into his hand and pretending it's an unknown card.
But yes, when you talk about the top end, there are a lot of cards that can come down to really have a big impact. There's, of course, Ice Steel Explorer. There's Mightform Harmonizer. These are cards that grow out of control very quickly. There's even a Mossborn Hydra. Oh, well, at least there was. It may have been taken out.
Yes. Well, I was going to say, now that you've watched Dylan make that play with the Burst Lightning against your Surak, you'd be much more inclined to run a Mossborn Hydra out onto this board now as well than you otherwise might have been.
Now comes a little Chocobo. And another land.
Immediate land trigger. Yep.
Nice. Is going to put a counter on both the Chocobo and the Ascension. And another Earthbender's Ascension. That's a great play here.
Yeah, that's a really good find for Riley Beck. So not only an additional landfall trigger bumping the bird again, but also another Earthbent land or a larger land that you already have, as well as the ability to continue to grow counters. So every land now is crucial.
This also turns on the Earthbender Ascension, correct?
It's four counters.
It is four.
So
needs another one.
Next land, of which I'm sure Riley has many in his deck.
Yep. And that makes a huge difference as well. The key thing, I mean, the +1/+1 counters are nice, but the key thing there is trample. Because if you play and start bouncing your Storm Chaser's talent and flooding the board with 1/1s, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if you're attacking with a big trample boy. That's going to get through.
So we saw those two counters from the new Earthbender Ascension hit the already animated forest, and Riley crack in for 4 there. And it does also put Dylan in a really precarious position where, while they're on 7 life, they can't even deal with that activated forest, that Earthbended forest, because it will come back onto the battlefield, trigger landfall on both the bird and the Earthbender Ascension.
Yeah, that's so brutal because it sort of replaces itself almost in the sense that it will redistribute its counters, at least some of them. But then also by turning on the Earthbender Ascension, that's just more +1/+1 counters and trample as well. So
exactly.
Dylan's stuck between a rock and a hard place here, and you can see taking some time to think about it.
Dylan's best option is any kind of ability that would allow them to bounce that Earthbended land.
Well,
unfortunately, not what they have.
A kicked Burst Lightning here is going to deal with the Chocobo, but not deal with the Forest, which can attack for probably 5 next turn.
Yeah, it'll depend on whether or not Riley has a land in hand.
Yeah.
But Dylan chipping in for 2, just knowing that they're not going to be blocking with that elusive otter one way or another.
Yeah. Mightform Harmonizer. Yeah, no land. That's it. All right, we're done.
Not just a land of fabled passage as well.
Done. Yeah. So that closing the game out in very emphatic fashion. We highlighted the Mightform Harmonizer as a key play, as a really high impact play, and you can see exactly why. Having even just one decently sized creature on the battlefield, then you play Mightform Harmonizer, and 1 land would have done it.
Yep.
But having a fetch land?
Yep. It's all over.
Yeah, all over Red Rover. So we move on now to game number 3. Things are all tied up at 1-1 between our 2 heroes. One of them, again, will be going to the World Championship here from Adelaide, the ANZ Super Series final. The coverage continues. Great to have your company. My name's Riley, joined by Molly Rowe. These two, they've had a long and very hard-fought weekend, Molly, to get to where they are. But both of them now just 1 game away from a Worlds invite.
Do you want to tell the players, the watchers at home, what it means to go to Worlds, Riley?
Worlds is the pinnacle of Magic competition. It is the very, very best. It's the biggest Magic stage where the very best players from all around the world play the best Magic they can. I mean, there is nothing bigger or better to do. The way I like to describe it, as we see both players opening here with a 1-drop, is to rip off Palavita Damarosa, world champion. This bloke's done everything there is to do. He's won 10,000 Pro Tours. He's world champion. He's face on a Magic card, everything, right? He said that winning the World Championship made a very big difference for him, particularly when talking to people who weren't necessarily into Magic, right? Because you talk about, I'm going to the Pro Tour, I'm going to the Spotlight Series. People are like, okay, I don't really know what that is, if they're not in this community.
Absolutely.
But it doesn't really matter what it is. If you describe yourself as a world champion, people understand that. It means something. So going to the World Championship, even saying that to someone, I'm going to the World Championship, geez, you must be bloody good. And for these players to be able to test their mettle against players of the highest caliber, right? Flying around the world to play Magic on the biggest stage, it means everything to a player who harbours these competitive dreams. Going to the Pro Tour is one thing. It's a huge step up in your game. It's a huge, a landmark achievement for more or less any competitive player. But the World Championship, as I say, the pinnacle of competition. And
The whole next level.
That's it. And both of these players, I'm sure, keen as mustard to get there. I was chatting to Riley, actually, yesterday. Didn't do a lot of preparation for this event. Kind of fell into it accidentally. Apparently won, as we see in a road, get rid of this elusive otter, won an LCQ, sorry, a qualifier, a regional championship qualifier, because you just want to play some sealed, and the format happened to be sealed. It is like, he's like, I'll play some sealed, no worries. Won, he's like, okay, I guess I'll go to Adelaide. I mean, what's the worst that could happen? Didn't get the chance to do a lot of preparation for standard. Clean up in the Swiss, and now in the top 8, in the final,
with an opportunity to do everything that you just mentioned, go to the pinnacle of competitive Magic play. The Magic World Cup, the World Championship.
So sometimes, you just have really good, really good weekends.
What a spike! That's amazing.
Yeah, and of course Dylan, a long-term competitor, been at the Pro Tour many times, made their name as one of the players to watch in this region here. So
for sure,
both would be very deserving recipients of the World Championship invite, but only one can get it. And right now, it's looking very good for Dylan. The Slick Shot Show-Off online. Double Otter, double Storm, building out those lands.
What a board.
Empty board. No third land here.
Yes, no third land yet from Riley Beck, and his turn 1 Chocobo promptly burst lightninged by Dylan early in the match. So we've seen a return volley, we'll say, from Riley Beck, pushing out in a road against that early elusive otter from Dylan. But the follow-up plays from Dylan have been very powerful so far.
I really hope that Riley's just in the tank here and isn't missing the third land, because if we're missing a third land here, it could be the game.
I don't think he's missing the third land.
No, because
So the one thing that's been really interesting about running reps with this Selesnya landfall deck is that the one thing that you learn when you start to play Magic is that you should never forget your land drop, and you should almost always do it early so that you've got mana in case something's countered or leaked or otherwise, right? And so you always want to kind of open your turn, untap, upkeep, draw. You want to be thinking about which land you're playing this turn. But this deck requires you to really think about all of your sequences, and often your landfall is the last thing you want to be doing.
It matters a lot more when you play the land. So it's good to see that Riley was thinking about when to play the land, or how to play the land, or what he wanted to get out of the land, and not, oh, I'm missing a land drop. Of course, Dylan ahead on lands because of the erode there, getting the extra basic out of the library. We're going to see Storm Chaser Talon tick up and return. Was that a Burst Lightning returned? Or?
Yes, it was Burst Lightning returned.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always interesting, particularly with Earthbender's Ascension, about how you sequence your land. So if you're not playing it on turn 3, like if you don't have to play a land to cast the Earthbender Ascension, whether or not you play the land early so that your land that you Earthbend onto is untapped, or whether you play your Earthbender Ascension and then get an additional landfall trigger onto your enchantment. It's always an interesting sequence to see which way players choose to go, whether or not they need that untapped creature.
It's going to be interesting to see how Riley gets out of this, to be honest, because double Storm Chaser's talent, Burst Lightning in hand can deal with that forest, and a Slick Shot Show-Off just always representing the potential for so much damage. And Riley's on 9.
He's on 9. Look, it's looking very dire. I won't argue with you on that front, Riley, but we know how explosive this Selesnya aggro deck can be. They may not have a lot of interaction and targeted removal in their 75, but you know, something here like a Sheltered by Ghosts, allowing for, you know, swing back and life gain in this deck can just turn the tide really rapidly.
And that's the key, isn't it? Buffering that life total, making sure that you're not being... and speak of the devil, verily shall he appear. Here is that Sheltered by Ghosts, a straight-up kill spell against the Otter. This
actually really like that, targeting the Otter there. One of the dangers of targeting the Slick Shot Show-Off is that it has haste.
Yeah.
So you can accidentally set your opponent up for a very explosive turn by taking that Show-Off, even though it does look like the most relevant threat on the board.
Another one.
Oh, what?
Double lifelink. No, obviously that's not how it works. But getting in for 4, buffering that life total as well, especially after the shock from the Temple Garden, back up to 11. This is steady the ship. This is what we were talking about, Molly. You mentioned Sheltered by Ghosts, a stabilising play, something to get your ship back on an even keel. It's much better for Riley.
It's it's really relevant as well, right, that all of Dylan Kakawa's potential bounce removal here is now significantly worse. Not only does the creature itself have double ward now, so it would cost...
Which does work, yes.
It does work, yes. Not double lifelink, but yes, double ward. So Dylan would have to pay 4 additional mana just to be able to target the forest, the creature under them. But one of the plays that you can make, and we saw it in one of the earlier games, was you can just bounce the Sheltered by Ghosts itself, which does not have ward. In this case, you don't want to do that. You're not getting your creature back, and all of a sudden you're just giving your opponent an additional removal spell. It's
a really good point, because, yeah, if you bounce a Sheltered by Ghost that had, say, a Storm Chaser Talent or a Slick Shot Show Off or whatever else underneath it, then you are getting some value from it.
Yeah.
Whereas here it's like, oh, I'm just going to bounce it so you can then
play it again,
replay it and eat up something else. So, no, I think you're right. You observed that Riley's targeting of those otters was extremely judicious. It was it was well done, and
it was
I think
an expert pilot there from Riley Beck.
Yeah.
But we were followed up by Dylan Kakawa with a Drake Hatcher, which is a big body that can do lots of things. Drake Hatcher being a really interesting addition to this prowess deck that we didn't see in every archetype of this that appeared over the weekend.
No, but it does offer a different dimension for the list in generating tokens. Also, again, I think in the mirror, it's pretty good given the fact that it doesn't die to Burst Lightning, although I guess not a lot does die to Burst Lightning when you've got prowess triggers to boost up your creatures. But just as a 1/3, it's well statted.
Vigilance is also super relevant in this very tradey back and forth kind of game style that has been happening with the quite aggressive meta that we've seen this weekend.
But sending things into the air is important as well, particularly in this match.
Oh my gosh. Wow!
Triple Sheltered by Ghosts.
Is that all 3? I think Riley Beck only has 3 in the sideboard.
3 in the board, and they're all on this forest.
Look, we all know the power of sideboarding. It's very important, and even more powerful than the sideboard itself is managing to draw all of your sideboard cards.
I was going to say, it's not just the power of sideboarding, it's the power of drawing your sideboard cards too. But you can see here Dylan flirting with the idea of actually blocking with the Drake Hatcher. This is 5 damage coming across.
5/2 lifelinking.
Which is... You wouldn't think it's that much when you're on 16, but the fact that, there's lifelink.
Well, a block here from Dylan represents that there's likely a spell in hand, and we know that there's a Burst Lightning in hand, right? So if Dylan does choose to block with the Drake Hatcher, it'll be a trade, but I imagine that Riley also can do math, and there's something in Riley's hand as well that would mitigate that effect, because they're not interested in giving Dylan back their show-off or losing their land or losing their lifelink capability just to a block.
I really want to know if Riley has something here, or if that was just a stone cold.
The bluff of the century.
Just a huge attack there.
Oh, there's some prayer hands from Riley Beck. I don't know if that was just wow, that paid off, or
another Drake Hatcher.
Okay.
Another Drake Hatcher. Nice. Again, we're talking about stabilizing. This is a nice stabilization play here for Dylan. No attack with the attack with the Drake Hatcher.
It's hard to tell with Vigilance. I guess we'll see the life totals reflected. I don't think so. Neither player reached the life totals.
Normally you give it a little poke, right? Normally you jiggle the Vigilance creature back and forth a little bit.
If neither player reached for the life total, I think we're safe to assume it did.
Oh boy!
Oh my gosh!
Boy.
Okay.
Oh boy! We've got a
Mightform Harmonizer and a land.
And a land, so that is going to pump up the forest to what, a 10 power creature?
Correct.
10 power lifelink as well. Oh my goodness, this could be it.
Yeah, that may be it. So Mightform Harmonizer targeting with the land drop. So 5/2 is the land currently, now a 10/2.
And we're going to see maybe a double block here as well. So does Dylan just not have any... I thought there was a burst light. Yeah, there's a burst lightning in hand.
Yeah, there's a burst lightning in hand. There's no trample on the land at the moment that I can see on the board. I can't figure out how there might be trample there.
Okay. It's double blockers. All right. Well, the Drake Hatchers will be 2/4s if the burst lightning was cast after. The burst lightning hasn't been cast yet.
The burst lightning has not been cast. It's in hand. We can see it open in hand.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it might be all of Dylan's hand, actually, currently, because Dylan played a land last turn.
Yep.
Oh, and we've got an erode on one of the Drake hatches.
So that was probably in hand last turn as
Yeah.
well. So that
I imagine so.
does go some way in explaining what had happened there. But yes, Drake hatcher taken down.
It's particularly safe to cast that erode now that Riley knows the contents of
Yep.
Dylan's hand as well.
Yep. So Dylan goes and gets an island. And these extra lands do matter when you've got Storm Chaser's talent.
Yeah.
But Dylan is definitely running out of time and space here.
It is still a trade, and as far as I'm aware, the land doesn't have to trample. So it is just a trade for this land for the Drake Catcher, but then Dylan would get his show off back.
Yeah, gets the slick shot show off. Okay.
We are finding out as you are coming from watching from home.
Yeah.
But what an incredible game, Riley. Like
Yeah.
this is, you know, it looked conclusively about to go in Dylan's way earlier. And
then triple sheltered by Ghost off the top, and all of a sudden it's very different.
yeah. Oh, okay. Yep. And we saw the land, which was Earthbended, come back, hit the battlefield, trigger the Earthbender Ascension once.
And look at this, both players hellbent. Both players playing off the top. I mean, a land for Dylan, draws an island.
Oh, but Storm Chaser's talent.
Yes,
Currently, one of those Storm Chaser's talents is on only level 1, so is activatable, which we are about to see from Dylan Kakawa here. Getting something back from their graveyard, it will have to be that burst lightning. And Riley Beck also playing off the top, but knowing that even if they do draw a land, it's good for them.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
the 4th counter on Earthbender Ascension. That's a double on Mightform Harmonizer, turning it into a 10-5,
10-5,
sorry,
yeah.
and with trample.
Yeah, 10-5 with trample as well. So any draw really is going to be a good one. Well, actually, not necessarily. You could draw
Riley,
like a Llanowar Elves, but go on.
Also, Riley having a Barsing Say
True.
trapped there back in his land pile, and the ability to use it. He's separating that out right now. So
Yep.
knowing that Dylan Kakawa is either going to have to chump the Mightform Harmonizer or can block the land quite successfully. But if Dylan wants to trade with that land, is going to have to give a landfall trigger back to Riley Beck.
A diversification of the threat portfolio, but a land.
We did see the land.
A land means not only does the Earthbender Ascension go up to 4, giving a +1/+1 counter and trample, it also means the Mightform Harmonizer will trigger as well. One of these creatures' power and toughness has been doubled. We're going to see an attack, and we're going to see a burst lightning as well.
Okay, unblocked, this was lethal. Slickshot Show Off will now do sufficient damage to the Mightform Harmonizer that will take out the Mightform Harmonizer, but there is 7 going over the top and 2 from the land, which means that Dylan Kakawa is dropping to 2 in the face of a 2/2 Earthbended land.
And it'll be a 3/3, and it'll have trample next turn. Dylan has to find something very special here. I think he found a Slick Shot Show Off. I got a very brief glimpse at the card.
It is. You are correct, Riley. That will not do it. Not in the face of Riley Beck, also with another Barsing Say activation option.
He can activate Barsing Say. He activates the trigger of the Earthbender Ascension, and that is that. Riley Beck has won this game and this match and is going to the World Championship representing the Australia and Aotearoa New Zealand region. Congratulations to him. What a victory. Coming back from what looked like a fair way behind. Triple sheltered by Ghost to clear the board, to buffer the life total, and then it was just about going over the top with those trample creatures. What a performance from him.
What an incredible finals match. As you say, it had twos and fros all the way through. Dylan Kakawa looked to have it conclusively as early as turn 3, and we saw an incredible rally from Riley Beck, a good board stall, and just unfortunate draws off the top of their library from Dylan Kakawa that just didn't get them there.
And sometimes, you know, I mean, the Izzet deck, it's very lean, it's tuned very well, and often we'll find those cantrips that lets it get to business. But sometimes, if you just draw too many lands, if you're not able to find the pieces you need, but you know, the Selesnya landfall deck has been touted as one of the ways to try to beat the Izzet list or the Teamer list, as we saw Dylan play, and you can see why. These trampling creatures, the life gain was really important as well from the Sheltered by Ghost. Really impressive performance from the Selesnya player.
I couldn't agree more. As you said, this deck has been built specifically with all of the Izzet variants in mind. I think Dylan knew that. I think Dylan's deck was really well tuned for a meta that was both Izzet prowess heavy and also Selesnya landfall heavy, but it just didn't come off for them this time, unfortunately. We did see 3 incredible games of Magic, one of which Dylan won very conclusively and put up a good fight in at least one of those other ones. So it is what it is.
Yeah.
Magic is variance, but variance is fun.
It was a great final. It really was. You know, it wasn't a one-sided affair. There was a back and forth. There was a to and fro, as you were saying, and showcases the fact that, you know, these matchups, people talk about, is it being obviously very well represented in standard, but not only are there the tools to fight it, but the gameplay is also still, it's highly interactive. It's very decision intense.
We saw incredible player skill all the way throughout that match. There were multiple lines available to both players at multiple different points that may have resulted in different game outcomes. But the reality is that these pilots are incredibly skilled. They have done the work, they've done the reps with this deck, and they're turning up very experienced, knowing what this matchup is going to be, and just bringing their best Magic. And
it's been a joy to watch. And that's about it. That's all she wrote today, sports fans. It's been a pleasure to have your company throughout the weekend here at the ANZ Super Series final in Adelaide. Be sure to follow the channel as we gear up for Spotlight Series Brisbane, which is coming later in August. If you're considering coming to the event in person, we'd love to see you there. Otherwise, it'll be great to have your company as we put the Asia-Pacific region on show here. I know lots of players will be flying in internationally, but of course, all the Aussies and Kiwis on the home ground.
Tickets are live now, and please make sure that you get yours in advance so that you don't suffer any dissatisfaction about not being able to make it on the day, because it will be an incredible event. We would love to see you there. August 28th through 30th in beautiful sunny Brisbane, hometown for our own Riley Knight.
I'm from Sunny Coast, I wouldn't say that, but yes,
close enough.
Close to an hour and a half away is close enough. Anyway.
In Australia it is, Riley.
Thank you very much for being with us. On behalf of the entire coverage team, it's been great to have your company. And also, more personally, thank you to the entire coverage team on my behalf. Molly, Matt, Tom, Marcus, Chris, all the people who have been working both in front of and behind the camera. It's been a joy to put this event.
And thank you, Riley. This is your first time casting in nearly a decade here on ANZ soil.
Yes,
so we were
true.
Incredibly privileged to have your dulcet tones join us this weekend.
It was good fun. Yeah, it's been the first time in a while since I've cast anything in Australia, but it's good to be back. It's good to be back. Okie dokes, that's going to do it from us. Thanks for being with us across the weekend. Take care of yourselves, and we will see you back here from Let's Play Games events in Brisbane. Until then, take care of yourselves, and good night.
Hi, we're here at Command Fest in the ANZ Super Series with our very own Riley Knight. He's been on the mic all weekend. Tell us what's been going on.
It's been a big weekend here in Adelaide. We've had, as you say, Command Fest going on for all the casual fans. We've had the ANZ Super Series for the more competitively minded people. But on top of these tournaments, I mean, there is so much else to do at events like these. There are vendors, there's prize wall, there's a magic store, there are the artists. There's so much going on at events like these. Lots of fun coming along to these big events.
So much fun, and we've got an even bigger event happening later this year. Can you tell us about that, when it'll be, all the goss?
Yes, indeed. So the Spotlight Series is coming to the Australia-New Zealand region, the Asia-Pacific region. I mean, we've had these events in North America. There's one coming up in Japan very shortly, but it's the first time it's coming to Australia. Spotlight Series coming to Brisbane in August, and I can't wait. This is going to be huge. I mean, these events right now, the regional championship type events, they're big as it is, but there is so much more going on at the Spotlight Series. Thousands of dollars in prizes for competitive players, a pathway to the Pro Tour, the World Championship, and of course, stuff for fans of Magic of all kinds to do. Whether you're a competitive fan or a casual fan, whether you want to play games of Commander or Limited or Standard, what have you, Spotlight, it's going to be massive. So if you're not already planning to come, you should be. It's going to be a great time.
Absolutely. We will see you there.